We are like this.
A very good evening to all, and welcome to the AIOS Guru Sangam session 2025-2026 edition. And this is the session 23, which is on research. And I welcome you all to this session. And research is definitely a very integral part of our growth, I would say. And I think postgraduates often do not know the importance of research. And I'm glad that we have such wonderful speakers and expert panelists with us who will enlighten you all with the topic of research. And today I thank the dignitaries of AIOS, Dr. Partha Biswas, sir, the President, Dr. Santosh Honavar, sir, the Honorary General Secretary, Dr. Manoj Chandra Pathwa, sir, the Honorary Treasurer, for making sure that Guru Sangam streams seamlessly. And we thank the speakers, Dr. Aishwarya ma'am from Narayan Netralaya, Bangalore, Dr. Vankireddy Mahati ma'am from Shankara Eye Hospital, Guntur, Dr. Sirisha V ma'am from MS Ramaya Medical College, Bangalore, Dr. Ravindra Chaudhary sir from VSS Medical Institute of Medical Sciences, Burla, and Dr. Sharmishta Behra ma'am from VSS Institute of Medical Sciences, Burla. So welcome you all to I welcome the speakers and the expert panelists, Dr. Latika VK from Amala Institute of Medical Sciences, Thrissur, Dr. Purvi Bhagat ma'am from MNJ Western Regional Institute of Ophthalmology, Ahmedabad, Dr. Sugata Balsa from Manipal Hospitals, Kolkata, Dr. Vanati ma'am from Dr. RP Center, AIMS, New Delhi. And the flow of our webinar today will constitute of topics ranging from basic statistics for thesis, literature search in ophthalmology, followed by how we can leverage AI in ophthalmology research, and the publication ethics, and the approach to case-based long questions for residents, which is one of the mixed topics. So thank you, everyone. And our moderators, I thank Dr. Ahan Shah for joining us from PGIMER Chandigarh, and myself, Dr. Rolika Bansal from Mahatma Gandhi Medical College, Jaipur. So, welcome everyone, and I request Dr. Aishwarya ma'am to please start her topic on basic statistics for thesis. Over to you, Aishwarya ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Rolika. I humbly thank all the dignitaries over here and the Guru Sangam team for having me over here. So today I'll be talking about the basic statistics for thesis. And my topic will start, of course, from what exactly is the clinical research all about. I do not have any financial interest over here. So the principal goal of clinical research is to use hypothesis-driven research, which documents the facts that may alter the laws and theories that are developed and subsequently redefine our paradigm of how to improve the quality of medical care in the future. So please understand that you need to understand that what is your research topic, what broad areas you are interested in. It could be cataract surgery outcome or glaucoma progression, but you need to operationalize your question. You have 5 questions over here and 5 steps. That is, formulate the preliminary research question, identify each of the main concepts, review the literature, identify and list measurable indicators for each concept. That is where our statistics comes into being, and rewrite the preliminary research question in an operational form. These will be the topics which I'll try to cover today. And statistics consists of a body of methods for collecting and analyzing data, and provides design, description, and inference all about the data. The design is about planning and carrying out research studies. Description is about summarizing and exploring data, and inference about making predictions and generalizing about phenomena represented over here in the studies. The types of statistics can be descriptive or inferential. In descriptive, you can summarize and organize data with the help of mean, median, mode, and use tables, charts, and graphs. And instead of that, if you have inferential, you can draw conclusions from the data and go for hypothesis testing or probability testing. So population and sample are 2 basic concepts in statistics. Population is the collection of all individuals or items under consideration for the study. Sample is the part of the population from which the information is collected. Parameters are used to summarize the features of the population under investigation. And at the same time, statistic describes the characteristics of the sample, which can then be used to draw inference about the unknown parameters. Remember, if you have larger samples, they are better because they are more representative of the population that you are studying. Now coming to variable and type. Variable is a characteristic that varies from one person to another. It could be qualitative or quantitative, discrete or continuous, or dependent or independent. Now, qualitative data is the variable which yields non-numerical data, for example, sex or marital status, and quantitative data are the variables that yield numerical data, for example, height, weight, etc. Discrete variable only has a countable number of distinct possible values, for example, the number of car accidents or the number of children, and continuous variables have divisible unit, that is weight, length, temperature, etc. Independent variable is not dependent on any other variable, for example, the age or sex of the patient, and dependent variable depends on the independent variable, that is, for example, weight of a newborn. Now, variables can also be described using the scale at which they are defined, that is, a nominal scale versus an ordinal scale. Nominal scales are categories which are merely names, they do not have a natural order. You could have a male, female, yes or no. And an ordinal scale has something like categories which can be put in order, but the difference between them may not be the same, that is, mild, moderate, or severe. Nominal and ordinal scales are both used to describe qualitative data. Now, scales of measurement, for example, interval scale or the ratio scale, they are very important because they are used to describe quantitative data. Interval scale has differences between variables which are comparable, for example, temperature or time. And ratio scale has absolute zero, and then differences between variables are comparable, for example, mild, moderate, or severe in different scores. Description of the data, let's go for qualitative data first. Frequency. Frequency is the number of observations falling into the particular class or category of the qualitative data variable. And frequency distribution are table listing all the classes and their frequencies. For example, graphical representation using pie chart or a bar graph. Nominal data is best displayed by pie chart and ordinal data is best displayed by bar graph. Now, quantitative data can be presented by a frequency distribution as well. So if the discrete variable has a lot of different values, or if the data is continuous, then the data can be grouped into classes or categories. For example, class interval, which covers the range between the maximum minimal values, class limits, that is the endpoints of class intervals, and class frequencies, where you have number of observations in the data that belong to each class. Now, this is usually represented as a histogram or a bar graph. You would have seen these colored graphs every now and then in different presentations. Now, what is the difference between a histogram and a bar graph? Three differences. Histogram is about continuous data. Bargram is about categorical or discrete data. Remember, the bars will be touching each other in a histogram, and in a bar diagram or a bar chart, you will have gaps between them. And rearranging bars is not possible in histogram, although it is possible without affecting the meaning in the bar diagram. Now, population and sample distribution is all about frequency distribution of the population versus the frequency distribution of the sample. Now, sample distribution is all but nothing but a blurry photo of the population distribution. As the sample size increases, the sample distribution becomes closer representative of the population distribution. You can also have symmetric or non-symmetric or skewed to left or right based on its tail as compared to the population distribution. Now look at this photograph. This photograph, let's say this is a box. In box, there's something that you don't know about. You make a small hole, you see a small sample, you see a tail over there. Then again, you make a small hole, you see an eye, but you don't know what exactly it is. You make a larger hole, and then you start seeing a face, a hand, or a tail. But then if you make a larger picture or a larger cut in the box, you see the whole cat over there. So this is all about how you understand the population in versus small samples to large samples. So remember, bigger samples are always better. Now, properties of numerical data and measures is about central tendency, that is mean, median, mode, dispersion, and shape. Measures of center can be between mean, median, and mode. Mean and median can be applied only to the quantitative data, and mode can be used either to qualitative data or quantitative data. In central tendency, majority of the observations pile up in and around a particular region. Now, mean is the sum of the values of a set of data divided by the number of values in the data set. For example, you have a data set like this. The sum of the values of all the values over here is 281. Divide the values with the number of values, that is 10, and you get the mean over here. What is mode? Mode is the most frequently occurring value in a set of data, and that is over here in this data set is 20. So this becomes the mode. If two numbers of equal frequency stand out, you have a bimodal data. But if more than two numbers of equal frequency stand out, then you have a multimodal data. This is the two distributions for a bimodal distribution and a multimodal distribution. Median. Median is the value that occurs in the middle of a set of data that has been put in a chronological order. So you have a data set like this, which has 11 values, then you order it into the values so that you have a central value, which is 24. Remember, if you have odd number of values, it will always have a median, but if there are even number of values, then the two middle values will be averaged for giving you the median. Qualitative data and qualitative variable will always, you have to choose the mode. If you have a quantitative data with a symmetric distribution, you choose the mean. And if you have a quantitative data with skewed distribution, you choose the median. Okay, so we use sample mean, median, and mode to estimate the population mean, median, and mode. Look at this particular picture. This has a scatter diagram, but there is a red dot which is outside. Now, this is what is known as an outlier. What does an outlier do? Outlier basically distorts the means, the standard deviation, and the result of parametric tests. You always have to remember to assess and carefully inspect the outliers to determine their cause. And outliers are extreme observations that then deviate markedly from the rest of the data and can influence statistical results and interpretations. Now, measures of dispersion can be the range, the variance, the standard deviation, standard error, and the coefficient of variation. Now, remember that dispersion is a key concept in statistical thinking. The basic question being asked is, how much do the scores deviate or vary around the mean, which will be answered by these five values. Now, range is the difference between the largest and the smallest values that occurs in the data. For example, over here in this data set, the maximum value is 47 and the minimal value is 2 and the range becomes 45. This is simple to calculate, but it neglects all the values in the center and depends on the extreme values. And then extreme values are dependent on the sample size. So it is not based on all the observations and it is not amenable for further mathematical treatment. Interquartile range is the difference between the first and the third quartiles of the variable. Percentile is basically that it divides the observed values into 100 equal parts. Deciles, they divide the observed values into 10 equal parts. And quartiles divide the observed value into 4 equal parts. Q1 or the quartile 1 is about the bottom 25 observed values from the top 75%. This is a picture. It is a box and whisker plot which shows the minimum values on the left and the maximum values on the right. Then it shows the interquartile range in the center and the range from minimal and maximum values. And the quartiles, first quartile and the third quartile are represented over here. The center is basically the median which is present. Now, variance. What is the variance? It is the average of sum of squares in the deviation from the mean. Suppose you have these values, which are observations, and if we calculate the difference of each value from the mean, it will be somewhere like over here. So if we sum the values of all the differences, it will become 0. But let's square the differences and then you sum them, it will not be 0, it will be around 40. Now, what is happening over here? The variance is calculated by the equation which are represented for the population variance and the sample variance over here. The variance can never be a negative value. Remember that all the values are considered and the problem with variance is the squared unit. Let's go a little further. You're talking about standard deviation. What is it? It is a kind of average of the absolute deviation of the observed values from the mean of the variable. It is defined using the sample mean and the values get strongly affected by the few extreme observations. But if SD is small, data points tend to have minimal variation. And if SD is large, it implies that the data points are spread over a large area. What is the difference between standard deviation and variance? It is a calculation because standard deviation is basically the square root of variance. The unit of measurement, like I said, variance is always going to be squared units of data, while standard deviation is always expressed using the original units. And for modeling and statistical theory, you will probably go for variance. But if you want to have practical explanations, you will go for standard deviation. Now, what is standard error of mean? First, it was SD, now it is SC. If you draw a sample from the study population and compute its sample mean, it is going to be slightly different from the population mean. And if you draw another sample, it is going to be slightly some other difference will come up. So remember that this variation is known as a sampling variation, and it measures the variability or dispersion of the sample mean from the population mean. It is used to estimate the population mean and estimate the differences between the population means. A large standard error of mean indicates that the estimate is imprecise, and the small standard error of mean indicates the estimate is precise. Come to the coefficient of variation. This is expressed, this expresses the standard deviation as a percentage of the mean. It does not have any unit, and it is used to compare dispersion in two data sets, especially when the units are present like this. And it measures relative rather than the absolute variation. Now, coming to the shape, skewness is basically the lack of symmetry in distribution. It can be interpreted from the frequency polygons. Remember that the curve is not symmetrical in all the values that you get, but it can be stretched to one more side. Then, what is kurtosis? Kurtosis is about the convexity of the curve. It gives an idea about the flatness or peakedness of the curve. Now here you see these histograms. The center one is symmetrical. It is a normal distributed histogram, but left-hand side it is positively skewed, the right-hand side is negatively skewed. Now in the positively skewed data, you will have median which is more mean, which is more than the median and mode. And over here in the negatively skewed one, you will have mean which is lesser than median and then the mode. Come to the normal distribution. Here, this is what is normal. This is a bell-shaped symmetrical distribution. Most of the things are normally distributed. So that is mean and is equal to be the median and then equal to the mode. And 68.2% of the values will lie between the first standard deviation and so on and so forth. Here the values of skew and kurtosis are going to be zero. This is how a normal distribution curve looks like. But then if you're talking about the kurtosis in which the distribution is non-normal, you will have a statistical measure that defines how heavily the tails from the distribution differs from the tails at the end of the distributions. So the distribution which has positive kurtosis is known as leptokurtosis and has too many scores in the tail region. As compared to that, if you have a negative kurtosis, it is also known as a platykurtosis and it will have less scores in the tail region. So if you compare all three of them, this is how it will all look like. Now, what are the tests to check normal distribution? These tests, statistical tests are Kolmogorov-Smirnov test, Shapiro-Wilk test, Lilliefors test, and Pearson-Chi-Square test. Shapiro-Wilk has the best power for a given significance. And if the data is not normally distributed, you can correct the data by doing log transformation or square root transformation. Hypothesis testing is one of the crux of our researches, where the aim of doing a study is to check whether the data agrees with a certain predictive predictions, and these predictions are known as hypotheses. You can have two types of hypothesis. One is basically when you have a null hypothesis where the statement and the parameter has value corresponding to some sense, basically no effect. An alternative hypothesis is a hypothesis which contradicts null hypothesis. Significant tests analyzes the strength of the sample evidence against the null hypothesis, and test statistics basically calculates from the sample data to test the null hypothesis. P-value is the probability value. If the null hypothesis were true, then the test statistic will fall where exactly in the collection of values. The smaller of the p-value, the more strongly the data is contradicting the null hypothesis. So if p-value is less than or zero is equal to 0.05, the data sufficiently contradicts the null hypothesis. Now, this is one of the very important slides where the null hypothesis is true. And if it is rejected, you have the type 1 error or the alpha error or the p-value. And if the null hypothesis is false and not rejected, then you have the type 2 error or the beta error. Remember that the p-value or the type 1 error has a maximum p-value, which allows is known as the level of significance. And it has to be mostly less than 5% or p is less than 0.05. And in type 2 error, you are basically accepting the false null hypothesis, and it is also known as the power of the test and indicates sensitivity of the test. P-value, let's say if you have an example where it is is equal to 0.04, that means there's a 4% chance the difference or the change between the population parameters and the sample statistic has happened by chance. This is where you will understand the p-value over here. These are the very unlikely observations towards the left and towards your right. This is the observed value which is coming over here, which is after the 95% statistical significance threshold, yet significant because it is before this area. Okay, so this is where the p-value comes into being. Now, estimation of sample size. You can have a large sample or small sample, but calculation of the sample size will also depend on the estimation of mean, estimation of proportions, sometimes a comparison in two means, comparison of two proportions. And you will also have to check the level of significance, the power, the study design, and statistical procedure. Remember that there are so many formulas which can be present, but at the same time, you have to decide which one actually will fit you. And how will you put the sample size in your thesis? Sample size, let's say, was calculated using the so and so formula as the study aimed to decide to study about the prevalence of dry eye disease. And assuming a prevalence of 30% and absolute precision, we can have the 95% confidence limit, and the minimum required sample was calculated to be 323, absolute precision of 5%. Now, with all this, we need to understand where are we going heading towards. We are heading towards a central limit theorem, which states that the distribution of the sum of an average of a large number of independent, identically distributed variables will be approximately normal. So basically, as the sample mean is over here, you can see as the n increases or the sample size increasing more towards the 30, you are approaching the normal distribution. This is the basis of many statistical procedures. Now comes the parametric tests. Parametric tests are statistical tests that makes assumptions about the parameters. And the assumptions made are that the data is following normal distribution and the sample size is large enough to follow the central limit theorem, and the data is not normal but still can be transformed. These are the different parametric tests which we can be used over here. Coming to the analysis of variance, this is also a technique where the total variation is present in a set of data and it is partitioned into several components. Each component has its specific variation. So in ANOVA, inferences about means are made by analyzing the variance. So whenever there are more than two means to be compared, we use ANOVA. And sometimes we use ANCOVA, which is the blend of ANOVA and regression. In other words, it measures how much two variables change together and how strong is the relationship. Let's say you've done the ANOVA test also, then post hoc tests are required. What is post hoc test? They basically tell us where the difference occurred between the two groups, and there are different types of post hoc tests. These post hoc tests, the common one in the left-hand side are basically Tukey's, Bonferroni's, Sheffer test, and Dunet test. And sometimes you have to do non-parametric ANOVA, where after Kruskal-Wallis test, you can do the Dunn's test, and after Friedman test, you can do the Wilcoxon signed rank test with correction. Now, coming to the correlation. Correlation denotes association between two quantitative variables. That is, the degree of association is measured by correlation coefficient or the Pearson correlation coefficient, and it is measured on a scale from -1 through 0 to +1. Correlation is nothing but the strength or the degree of association between the two variables. For example, over here, in the left-hand side, you see over here is a highly negative correlation, but at the same time, this is a highly positive correlation. If the correlation value is around 0.2, you have a weak one. And if here it is equal to or more than 0.9, it is a strong one. And then what is regression? Regression expresses the linear relationship between the variables. Regression coefficient or beta can be linear, nonlinear, stepwise, and it gives a better summary of the relationship between the two variables than correlation coefficient. Now we are confused. What is correlation and what is regression? What is the difference? Now correlation is basically about the relationship of the two variables. In the regression, one will definitely affect the other. Variables will move together in correlation, but here there will be cause and effect relationship between the regression, and data represented will be in a single point in correlation, and here the data will be represented by a line. X and Y can be interchanged, but X and Y cannot be interchanged in regression. Let's come to the non-parametric tests. These are distribution-free tests, which are because they are based on fewer assumptions. When the sample size is small, if there are presence of outliers, and they are basically relatively simple to conduct. These are the few non-parametric tests that you will come across. Chi-square test is also used for analysis of categorical data. And the requirements of chi-square are that the sample should be independent, it should be reasonably large, and the expected cell frequency should not be less than 5. Relative risk is also one word that you will come across. It is the ratio of the incidence rate amongst the exposed to the incident rate amongst not exposed. And odds ratio is also the ratio of exposure amongst the cases to odds of exposure amongst the controls. It is used for rare diseases and events. Now, having said that, let's go to the summation of the qualitative and quantitative data research. So qualitative research is all about providing complex descriptions and information about issues such as contradictory behavior, sometimes beliefs, opinions, emotions, and relationships. You can use phenomenology, ethnography, and grounded theory for doing qualitative research, as compared to quantitative research, which is a systematic investigation that connects numerical data and uses statistical methods to analyze relationships, differences, or effects between variables. You have to the objectives of the quantitative research are about measuring variables, comparing groups, determining relationships, and testing hypotheses and predicting outcomes. Let's go to the resources, which I would like to speak about a little bit over here. There are three books, the top three books, which I would recommend to people if you want to go towards biostatistics. A few courses from Coursera, and there are a few YouTube channels which are doing very well. Personally, my favorite is Andy Field and Adventure Statistics, which is a very relaxed way. It is mainly like a novel if you want to learn about statistics. And this was introduced to me by my mentor, Dr. Matthew Kurian, and this is a very, very nice book, which I would recommend people if you want to just, leisurely read statistics about. These are the few softwares that we often use for our statistics, that is SPSS, R. And there are other qualitative data analysis softwares also, which are regularly used for a statistical understanding. And as beginners, I can talk about 10 commandments over here. First, start with your research question, not the test. Do not choose a statistical test first. Statistics should always answer the question, not decorate the thesis. Ask about what is my objective, what is my outcome variable, what is my exposure and predictor. Commandment 2 is clearly identify the type of data, and examiners will expect this classification explicitly. Commandment 3 is describe the data before analyzing it. Always present the descriptive statistics first and never jump straight to p-values. Commandment 4, that check the assumptions before using parametric test. Do not blindly use t-test or ANOVA. And if assumptions fail, use the non-parametric test. Commandment 5, that use appropriate graphs and mention why you are using them. Never include a graph without explaining what it shows. Commandment 6, report exact p-values. Don't just say significant. It is a good way to say that the difference was statistically significant where the p-value was 0.032, and also specify the test which was used. Commandment 7 is do not confuse the statistical significance with clinical significance, and discuss the effect size, confidence limits, intervals, and the practical relevance of things. Commandment 8 is learn your MS Excel and keep statistics simple and justified. Avoid unnecessary complexity. Use a simple test. Commandment 9, write statistics in past tense and passive voice. Maintain a formal academic tone. Commandment 10, last but not the least, always mention software and significance level. Include the statistical software which was used, the version number, the level of significance, which is a mandatory thesis requirement. Before I end, I would like to express my gratitude towards all my colleagues over here in Narayan Nethralaya and to my mentors who have helped me at different points of time in life, Dr. Matthew Kurian, Dr. Abhijit Sinha Roy, Dr. Sabyasachi Sen Gupta, Mrs. Arna Singh, and Mr. Anuj Kumar. Thanks a lot.
Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Yeah, go ahead, Ahan. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Aishwarya ma'am, for setting up the foundation for us so clearly. I'm sure this will be very helpful to all the postgraduates for their thesis and even for exams for that matter. May I please request Dr. Purvi ma'am to give her valuable comments on this talk?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rahan. And that was a very nice and very detailed presentation, Dr. Aishwarya. And I'm sure the PGs would definitely benefit from all this information that you have shared. So one thing is like whenever we hear this word biostatistics, everybody gets into a scare. And most of us, especially as clinicians, we are quite poor at all these things. And it's like a maze because we feel it's very easy to get in, but the moment we get in, we are stuck and we don't know how to come out of that. And now a lot of online those calculators are there, softwares are there, and even of course now the AI is there. So it's very very easy to decide like and find out what kind of a variable is it, what test would be suited, and how to apply those tests. But even having said that and used all those tools and AI, the responsibility lies on us as researchers to validate those outputs that are there, because the AI might give up very wrong information. It might not have the context. It doesn't understand the research question that we are dealing with. and it might then present with a wrong analysis. So it's very, very important to understand all these basics so that we can use those platforms in the correct way. And second is, as very rightly pointed out, in all thesis and perhaps all research work, it is very important to know the type of data you are generating. What category does it fit in? Is it nominal, ordinal, numerical, continuous, and whatever, so that you know that which test should apply and what analysis do I need to do. Because if you don't understand your data, your data is not going to understand you, and it's not going to give the right results. And a good practice for the PG students, especially when they're doing their thesis, would be like beforehand, even actually before starting the data collection, and maybe as a part of the thesis protocol, they can prepare a small dummy table, or a code book kind of a thing, wherein whatever parameters, variables they are there, that they are going to gather in their case record form through their pro forma, they put it in the table and they align it with the objective, that if I gather this information, is it going to answer any of my objectives? Because sometimes what happens, the students just in a rush of excitement, or maybe just as a part of a routine habit, they gather so much information which actually is not necessary. Maybe asking the residence is not necessary, asking the religion is not necessary, and so many things, they're totally unaligned to the objectives. So why unnecessary collect data when you're not going to use it? So beforehand, if make a table, put all those variables, what objective is it aligned to, what type of variable is it, and how I'm going to use it, then gives a lot of clarity later on when you're actually utilizing that data. So preparing a dummy table and a code book beforehand might be a good practice. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, I
Right, right.
completely agree. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am, for your valuable insights. Can we have some quick comments from Dr. Latika before we proceed to the next talk?
Yeah, thank you. Actually, something that happened today regarding this statistics, I would like to share something that happened today. It was a very comprehensive talk by Dr. Aishwarya, covering almost all aspects in this much short time is not an easy job. So today, what happened was I was actually working on a thesis with my PG, and there are three. I'll just make it very short. There are three important and very commonly done mistakes, and I would like our PGs listening to this talk to note these 3 points. One, please make it a point to discuss your statistics with the thesis guide before you go to the statistician to get it done. You have to discuss your data. Once the data collection phase is over, it is a very good practice to go and discuss the results till then with the guide and decide on the plan of statistical analysis, because the PG will not be aware of it. So PG should have that plan in discussion with the guide so that the statistical analysis is more productive. Second, you should make sure that the data is clean. The guide can help the PG decide that. For example, today my PG had a lot of unnecessary data in that. Data was not acceptable. The OCT images were not acceptable to be analyzed. So the cleaning of the data should happen before the preliminary analysis. Otherwise, we will have to repeat the whole thing after a cleaned data. And thirdly, it is not at all done that the PG just gives the data to the biostatistician and goes and collects the results. It is very much necessary for them to have good relationship and multiple visits to the statistician to have a good analysis, as the results are all ours and the statistician does not know the clinical relevance of anything at all. So these are the 3 points I would like to make regarding this.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for your insights. Now, may I please request Dr. Mahathi to start with Dr. Mahathi from Shankar Eye Hospital, Guntur, to start.
Sorry to interrupt 1 second. I would like to also take expert opinion on from Vanati ma'am. So Vanati ma'am is also there in our expert panelists. Ma'am, may
Yeah,
I ask you
yeah.
as well?
Thank you, Rolika and Han. And I think I've not listened to a more comprehensive and nicely laid out stats approach made easy for thesis students. And I think me as an editor, I'm still learning how to do statistics more effectively. So it's a continuous learning on the job kind of an attitude. The more you do, that's when you really understand what are the various practical applications of the numerous statistical approaches you have. So I think I would still call myself a novice. I would still call myself that with each paper which I'm reading, I really become better than what I am earlier. So a good tip for the residents would be probably set aside a time to do some journal reading, some original article reading which is related to your particular topic of interest, and make it mandatory. Today, I think we are all slipping out of the habit of reading. But I think that goes a long way, whether you're reading it on your digital devices or you're reading it as a hard copy. Just make it a habit to do some form of a reading to sort of acquaint yourself to how statistical approach needs to be done for particular papers. And that goes a long way in really helping to develop you as a good researcher.
Thank you, ma'am.
Right, ma'am. That's actually true that there are so many biostatistics topics that we actually can read on our own. I personally have resorted to doing my statistics myself because it's the best way, because I think then you can analyze it in the best method. And I think my teacher was one of my colleagues in Wills who has been doing everything on R. And when he taught me, and I realized that there is so much more that we can do when we analyze the data ourselves, because we cannot explain to the statistician sometimes, but we can look at the different variables which were possibly not even thought of. So that becomes more interesting. I totally agree. And ma'am, love the 10 commandments as well.
Yes.
So important.
There's
Over
one
to
thing,
you,
typical thing which I have done for myself, that whenever I'm doing statistics for the papers that I am writing, so whenever I get tables or any particular thing, I just write down what exactly it means.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it means that, then I understand that, okay, is my understanding correct? Okay, fine. I corroborate that with one of my statisticians or one of my colleagues, and then I move forward. Okay, this much is done. This is already understandable. What is not understandable? Let's move on to the next one. So it
Right.
takes a lot of time, but it helps a lot at the end of the day.
Right. And with every table, it's okay to write what even
Yes,
every table's p-value means. It just have to
exactly,
put it as
exactly.
an essence. And later, when you're writing the paper, you can choose what all to write, but everything should be there in front of you. Absolutely agree with you, ma'am. Over to you, Ahan. Yeah.
Yeah, queuing on to Vanati ma'am's insights on this, I'll be definitely reading An Adventure by Andy Field, the book that ma'am emphasized. I'm sure it will be very helpful to all the residents as well. And with that said, can I please request Miss Vanati to take over the session by starting on literature search in ophthalmology? And yeah, that's all.
Over
Hello,
to you, Dr. Mahati, ma'am.
hello, good evening, everyone.
Good
1 minute,
evening, ma'am.
I'll share my screen. Can you see me? Can you hear
Yes,
me?
ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you, AOS, for giving me this opportunity. Today, I'll be talking about literature search, be it ophthalmology or any other specialty. The basic rules of literature search remains the same. So, why do we need to do literature search? For doing a quality research and publishing it. And literature search is very important in every step. Before we start a literature search for a particular topic, we need to formulate a proper research question. So, how do we select our research question? We use the most famous PICOT criteria, where it is PICOT, where we identify the patient or the study population, the type of intervention we are using, the comparison or the control arm, the primary outcome, and timing of the measurement of the outcome. So, whenever we need to formulate a research question, we use this criteria. And after using the PICOT criteria, we use finer criteria to critically evaluate if the question is well structured and is it worth pursuing and practically achievable. Finer, check whether it is feasible, whether it is interesting, whether it's novel, relevant, and last but not least, ethical. So, whenever we want to do research on a topic, after the problem formulation and hypothesis is done, we need to identify the study design, do a data analysis, do a manuscript writing, and we need to also choose a journal to publish. So, literature search is useful in each and every step of writing the paper. So, why to do literature search? One is to find out what is already known, to identify the lacunae and the research gaps in the existing literature, and to formulate the questions for our topic proper. I know it's a really boring topic, but let's try to make it interesting. I hope everyone likes a biryani here. So, whenever we are trying to start a restaurant in a new place, what do we look for? We know everybody makes biryani, so we need to understand what is already known about the biryani, what are the ingredients, and how do we make it new for our restaurant. Similarly, when we have a research topic, we need to know what is already known. For example, like what are the treatments available or what are the conditions in sea, and how to make it new for our study. So, what is already known is from the literature. So, the literature is usually of three types. It can be primary, secondary, and tertiary. Primary literature usually includes the case reports and clinical trials, which are authentic and are published for the first time. Whenever a systemic review or a meta-analysis done of the primary literature, it becomes the secondary literature, and tertiary literature is usually the reference books. So, how to find out what is already known? The main sources of primary literature or secondary literature can be free or paid. Among free, PubMed, Medline, Google Scholar, Cochrane, and database of few clinical trials are free. Where our paid subscriptions can be seen in Scopus, Elsewhere's, Cochrane, Web of Science, or AO journals. Paid subscriptions can be institution acquired, where institution can have a subscription. Be it free or paid, the most PubMed is another task. Be it Cochrane or PubMed or Scopus, the type of search is same. So whenever we want to search for something in PubMed, an ID creation is done. Even we can search without an ID, but whenever we create an ID, we can have your own bibliography. It shows the recent activity, and you can also save your searches which you have done, and you can add your own filters. So always it is better to create an PubMed ID. And after you log in, there is a user guide for PubMed, which is around 100 pages, which I have tried reading it, and it itself gives a guide. So, how to use PubMed? There are mainly 4 terms for using PubMed very easily, and we can get accurate data. One is use of mesh terms or automated term mapping, use of truncation or wildcards, use of Boolean terms, and application of filters. We will try to see each of them in a little bit of detail. So, what is mesh terms or automated term mapping? Sometimes synonyms exist, and authors can use a variety of words, synonyms for the same topic. For example, if an author has written keratoplasty and some others author has written corneal transplantation, technically speaking, both are same. But if we search for keratoplasty, we might get only those studies with keratoplasty, and we might not get studies in which corneal transplantation is there. So in such cases, go to the mesh database. Go to the mesh database, and it is an automated term mapping is present. Suppose here I am typing corneal transplantation, and when I put search, I get all the terms which are related to corneal transplantation. The grafting, keratoplasties, lamellar keratoplasties. So such automated term mapping is already done in PubMed, and it is given, or you yourself can map it. Then we have the term truncation. Truncation is done to widen the scope of research. For example, if I want to study about the role of relation between diabetic retinopathy and smoking. If I search for diabetic retinopathy and smoking, I've got 1,000 results. Sometimes in some studies, it can be a smoker. Then I have got only 163 results. So truncation is used where I put a star so that it includes all the terms which are related to smoking, and hence see now I got 1148 results. This is how your search can be widened and you get more number of articles. And use of Boolean terms or operators. So there are three terms which can be used in PubMed to widen or narrow your scope of search, and they are and, or not. So in the PubMed advanced filters, we can use and, or not. So here I am trying to use the term and. So I am trying to find the relation between, for example, between diabetic retinopathy, laser, and intravitreal injection. Whenever the and term is used, it gives only those studies which have all these three terms: diabetic retinopathy, laser, and intravitreal. So when I did search for this, I got only 500 results. The next term is or. If I use diabetic retinopathy and laser or intravitreal, it gives all the studies with diabetic retinopathy and laser, diabetic retinopathy and intravitreal, and all three of them. Now I got around 13,000 results. The next is not. So here it is diabetic retinopathy and laser and no role of intravitreal injections. Now I got 1,000 results. So by using Boolean terms, we can narrow your search or you can widen your search based on what you want or what you do not want. Then we have the whole set of filters on the left side, whether be it the type of the year of publication ranging from a whole lot of 1997 to the recent publication, the type of text, the full text or the abstract, and whether it is a book, clinical trial, or a meta-analysis, the publication date range, and whether it was done on humans. And we also have additional filters which can be done on the type of the article, the species, the language, sex, age, and even other filters too. So always when doing for literature search in PubMed, try to use these filters, the Boolean terms and truncations, so that we can narrow down your literature search for that particular research question or that particular research topic. So now that you have got all the literature, the question comes, how to sort these out? So whenever you have got all your articles, try making a table which says the author, the title, the author, the year and type of publication, the methods, results, discussion, the main points or the conclusion, and the takeaway. In this table, the most important points are the methodology and the takeaway critics. For every literature search or the article you found, write the takeaway points and see the methodology and try applying these and select which of these is best applicable for your particular publication or paper. And we also have AI tools like Summarizate, Semantic, Enago, and the list is endless. They also give the summary. All said and done, as Dr. Vanity ma'am said, read, 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 and read. Unless you read the literature, you will not get an idea of what is actually needed in your study or what is to be actually done. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for the wonderful insights. I learned a lot, especially with the PubMed search strings, Boolean terms, and ATM is something that was new to me. I did not know about the automated term mapping. So that was very, very insightful. May I please request Dr. Sujato to give his valuable comments?
Ahan, you can go on with Latika, ma'am,
Okay.
because the Pulsar has not joined yet.
Okay, right, ma'am. Right, ma'am. Dr. Latika, please.
Thank you, Dr. Han. And thank you, Dr. Mahati. That was a really, it was a very simple and usage talk, and very, very useful for the PGs too. So I just would like to add 2 points to that. One is that whenever you start your literature search, you should have a clear aim in mind. As for example, whether your study topic or your research question is concerning, is it something about theory that you're going to prove, or is it some prognosis that you're looking at in that way? So if it's a theory that you're coming up with, then maybe the right way to do it is start with a systematic literature search. A good resource maybe start with a systematic review. Whereas if it's a prognosis you are looking at, maybe you should start going to observation studies, case control, etc. If it is about tests that you're going to, it's a test that you're comparing with another gold standard test, probably a test of diagnostic accuracy type of study. So it is very good to have an idea of what your tuning your literature search to the aim of your study that you're going to do. And secondly, personally, I feel that before going into the individual articles, it may be a good idea to look at systematic reviews and meta-analysis, which will give you a good overall idea about the topic that you are into. And also, you can have, if you go to the references of that particular article, you can find very good individual research article that will be a guide for further referencing. So, and also systematic reviews are very much top in the evidence pyramid. So it is a good place to start. And good systematic reviews will directly point to good studies too, which are reliable. So these are some of the pointers that I would like PGs to note.
Thank you. Thank you, Latika, ma'am. May I please invite Dr. Vanaja, ma'am, for her comments. Vanathi, ma'am, for her comments, please.
Yeah. Again, I think I endorse all the comments which have been expressed by Dr. Latika. And Bhati very nicely summarized the entire way by which you could effectively put PubMed to use here. But all said and done is being knowledgeable on a particular subject you want to research. And also talk to your senior colleagues and your guides who are probably, their experience can guide you better. And read widely on on the subject here. That is when you would really be able to assess the authenticity of the review which you are of the literature which you are reviewing. And today, many, I think, PGs resort to using AI for writing out their introductions and their review of literature. I would really not encourage that aspect in your beginning stages, because you would not really be able to point out those literatures which are probably hallucinated or which are not probably being projected the right way which the particular study intended it to project as. So that is only after you have a commendable amount of knowledge that you then go ahead, and when you have your knowledge, you will really be able to pick out what the AI is saying is right or wrong, and you know that this is an AI generated write up here. So I would not encourage the beginners to use AI for their review of literature. When you really sit down and do it, it does take a long time. But by reading is when you're probably going to master that particular subject, and you will also come across a wide variety of clinical presentations, a wide variety of other people's experiences, which can really enhance your thought process and can also enhance your knowledge.
Absolutely agree with you, ma'am. I think I really would like to echo that fact that initially, if you use AI, you won't even know what you're doing with it. So, ma'am, that's absolutely right. And I think I can verify this that I have sat with three softwares and tried to give them some commands which were very basic to see whether they actually generate it correctly or not. The entire review of literature generated by AI by three different softwares, which were in paid versions in different places, were incorrect. So how will you know that is because you know that this has not been written by this person. Even the title and even the authors were shuffled because AI doesn't know that. So we get often papers which are papers for review when we are reviewers, and we know that it has been written by AI because even the authors and the titles are wrong. So if you don't know it, you won't even know what you're doing with it. Absolutely agree. Right. Over to
May I
Purvi,
just,
ma'am.
excuse me, may I just add one
Yes,
more
ma'am.
point to this discussion? Just wanted to add that whereas PubMed is a very reliable source, it also cuts off a lot of articles because, if you are looking at a topic with limited references, you've got only limited references, it may be a very good idea to start with or to go back to your Google Scholar, which may have indexing databases in it, whereas PubMed will give you very reliable yet limited source. So pages may find that also a useful tip.
Right.
Another point to add on is if you're particularly researching, say, for example, you're looking at patch grafts, which is a sort of a niche subject within corneal transplantations. After you picked up a few key articles on these, if you really scroll down, it also gives you a lot of recommendations on similar articles on the subject. So
Yeah.
that's another way by which if you missed up some of the major articles, you could really pick them up when you do this kind of an sort of an extended scope of search. It really does help you.
Right. And that's reliable.
Yes.
That search is actually
Yes.
reliable. Right. Okay. Over to you, Purvi, ma'am. What about your inputs, ma'am?
Yeah, so much of it has already been discussed. The important points, which as either researchers or as teachers, we would want to convey to the students and listeners, and a very lucid and nice presentation, Dr. Mahati. It makes the concepts very clear. So, again, just to reiterate a few things, before indulging into literature search, one needs to be very, very clear about what we are seeking for, what is a research question, and what are the objectives. Just not, dive into it for the sake of it. Second, again, endorsing what Dr. Latika said, PubMed does have restrictions. And so we need to explore other arenas too. And sometimes, even though it's not a part of an index journal or an official publication, sometimes, just putting your research question or topic into Google itself as an internet, sometimes it comes up with such good material that it may not be maybe useful for literature like referencing or something, but it helps you to understand your topic very well, some basic explanations or something. So even not totally ignoring those aspects, just a general Google search might also be a good idea. And in PubMed, again, sometimes there is, two segments, PubMed and PubMed Central. So some articles may not be part of PubMed Central and they just give you abstracts. So even as beginners, as students, one should not hesitate to sending out a request to the authors, that we are doing a similar kind of a project, and it would be very great if nice and supportive, helpful, if you could please share your full text. And most of the researchers, usually they are very kind to share their work or share the full text. So even that should not be, that only the abstract is there, now what should I do? Don't hesitate, just put in a request to the authors, and almost always you are bound to get a revert. And again, there are some other platforms, like not talking of AI, but there are some other platforms and softwares, like one is Research Rabbit, which is also a very good platform for literature search. It helps you, to connect with articles before a particular article, after a particular article, work done by a similar author, work done on the same topic, and it generates a very nice kind of a web of literature search. So things like that can also be explored. It's not only like fascinating for the younger generation because it is all like high tech and it has a great network and lot of good visuals, but it actually gives good outputs, and the studies there are actually quite significant and important, and it includes everything like PubMed, non-PubMed, everything. So such softwares and tools can also be explored.
Right.
Very valid comments. Can I just add on?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think very valid suggestions, Dr. Purvi. One more to add on to that is PubMed also has where you can log in and make in your own account in PubMed. And for example, if your thesis is on say on a particular say voriconazole and fungal keratitis, and after you've done your literature search, you can send your own literature search to a particular email or emails you want to share it with, and you can also raise an alert system in it. So whenever any article related to that particular subject is published, it always comes into every month, it comes into your email box inbox itself. And that's a very nice way which keeps alerting you on all newer publications, and you can go back and read on them, and keep building up on your review of literature as you're going through your 2 or 3 years of your post graduation. It makes your work a lot easier that way.
Right, ma'am. Ma'am, actually, I do agree with that. And I think I'll add one more point is when you're doing your review of literature, you can keep adding all the articles directly into categorized folders, either on Zotero or EndNote or whichever reference software that you're using, so that you don't miss out on that. Usually, when you see my desktop, and if I try to share my screen right now, it has like 6 different tabs of Windows and they of Chrome, and then they have like probably 20 tabs in one, because that's how we do our research. But you can narrow it down by keeping it categorized into different folders, as ma'am said. That's very important. And another thing would be, as Purvi ma'am, you highlighted that that you can write to the authors. Just telling the postgraduates, many of the papers are not open access. That means that when you're submitting the paper, you're not agreeing for open access. That means it will be available after a span of 1 year. So if any paper that is recently written in the span of like 3 to 4 months, that paper might not have come online, and you might not find it anywhere, even through your institution. So you can actually write to the people and get it, and we have done it. So it's okay, and they're sometimes very cordial. In fact, they send you more literature as well. So that's a very good point, and good to learn. Over to you, Ahan.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to ask Rolika, ma'am, like if I know that this article is not published yet, how can I get to know the author who may be involved in the breakthrough research on that point? If you can
No,
just
no.
enlighten.
The paper will be published. The paper information will
Okay,
be
the
published, and
access.
probably it will show as no abstract available, or it will just be the abstract. It's not openly available for access. Like if you see, the articles will have something as free access, the free link available, or link to the complete article. That part will not be there. But their information will always be there, and corresponding author's email ID will always be there. I think Vanati ma'am and Purvi ma'am will be able to highlight that better, because they have done much editorial work.
Yeah, so agreeing with what Rolika has said, it's more about like the content not being open access and openly available. But of course, the title and the author's name are always there. Another good recommendation would be that even as beginners, as students, you should enroll in platforms like ResearchGate and, academia and others. So whenever some research work is done, like you just put in your topics of interest there, you make your profile and everything. So whenever somebody does any research, publishes a paper related to that arena of interest, you get a mail notification. So
Yeah,
you are constantly updated with what is coming up new in the field, what articles are being published, or you have published something and your co-author now publishes something else, does some new work. So you'll constantly be getting a feed on these. So
yeah.
one should enroll in all such research related
I agree
platforms.
with you, ma'am. And even Google Scholar alerts, then these are so useful, because one thing it also does is it gives you reason to go back and start writing. Because once you see the Google alerts, I mean, it happens to me at least, I feel like, oh my God, 2 more published and I have not yet done that. So it gives you stimulus to go back and it's like start with your research work. Okay, people are publishing. I still have work to do. That also is a good reminder. I mean, it's not for you all, but for us at least, it is the reminder that, okay, we have data lying around and we need to work. So that is definitely a good thing. Agreed with you, ma'am. Ahan, over to you.
Okay. This is truly like a feast for all of students like us. Me, who has just finished his post-graduation, I'm learning so much. I'm very grateful to the speakers and panel for that and Rolika ma'am. Now, may I please invite Dr. Sirisha from MS Ramaya Medical College, Bangalore, to enlighten us on how to use AI correctly, leveraging AI in ophthalmic research.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. All good.
Yeah. So, very good evening. And we are at crossroads in medical history. Ophthalmology has always been a tech forward specialty, but today we aren't just talking about lasers. We are talking about intelligent systems. And in contrast to the very traditional research that we have been talking about all this time, I'll be giving the other side. So, I would like to thank All India Ophthalmic Society and Guru Sangam for this wonderful platform. And here we go. So this is my disclosure statement, which is a very important part of this particular presentation because artificial intelligence has been used to create this presentation. I have used AI for literature mapping, for visual generation, for having an idea about the presentation structure, but the final content, interpretations, and scientific conclusions remain the sole responsibility of the author. I have no financial interest or affiliation with any of the specific AI applications that I would be talking about. So if we look at how AI has transformed ophthalmology, 2018 was the first time when a study was done to realize that the fundus photo could represent how the systemic status was. So this just opened up a gamut of studies, and it was phenomenal, which led to looking at OCT images, triaging diseases, how cardiovascular status is, how hypertension behaves on a systemic manner. And now we have red found a foundation model which collected 1.6 million fundus images, and the model, which is Google DeepSeek, performed a self-supervised learning on this model to detect diseases. So but now where are we looking at? We are moving from detection to prediction and precision intervention. So we are looking at autonomous home OCT monitoring, AI integrated robotic microsurgery, predicting response or non-response to drugs like anti-VEGF, also looking at development of digital twins, a twin online, which would be exactly similar to the human, which would be undergoing treatment and would exactly predict how the disease would progress or the response to treatment would be. So all very exciting things. But how is this important to a postgraduate? So let me go back to our Puranas. So now, if I have to explain how artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning can be understood. So this is a Purana that is a pact between Maharshi Vedavyasa, who dictated Mahabharata to Ganapati. And the pact between Vedavyasa and Ganapati was that Vedavyasa told Ganapati that you have to write down Mahabharata. I'll be dictating Mahabharata to you. This is somewhat similar to natural language processing. So Vyasa's dictation is a structured language input to Ganesha. Ganesha is similar to the Medhas, that is the artificial intelligence, who is the great processor. And Ganesha's pact was that I will keep writing, but you should never stop. I should not keep my quill down. And Vyasa agreed to this. But Vyasa, being human, he used to get tired. And just before he wanted a break, he would compose very complicated verses, the Grantha Granthis, which would sort of knock off Ganesha off, and he would take time to decipher, because Vyasa's pact in this deal was you will not write without understanding what has been given to you. So this is deep learning, where Ganesha had to, on his own, on an autonomous functionality, had to unknot the Grantha Granthis. So now this all with the generative AI, that is Valmiki, who is the Adikavi, the initial person who gave us the language and made the generative foundation. All this gave us a model which is similar to like in Puranic terms, the Mahabharata, which is a massive knowledge repository, which is Vyasa's compilation. So from here, we go to what is agentic AI. So again, going back to Mahabharata context, agentic AI does these three functions. It functions autonomously, so it doesn't need step by step monitoring. It doesn't need instructions. Once you given a dictation, it starts reasoning and it has the workflow. So in case it encounters a problem, it denotes complex verses, it buys time, ensures continuous progress towards the final goal. So the second thing is tool use and resourcefulness. When Ganesha found that his quill couldn't keep up with the speed of Vyasa's dictation, he immediately broke his tusk and started writing Mahabharata. So the same way AI works. So whenever there's a problem, the system doesn't crash. It finds a solution which is built in. There's a toolkit. So this shows there is self-correction and tool augmentation. And finally, the most important thing which makes large language models very uniquely as close as human is the reasoning and the verification. So large language models understand the problem that is being presented to them. There is a chaotic process, that is the chain of thought logic. So and it processes data, and before committing and ensuring, it just doesn't predict, but it also understands. So we are going beyond passive generation to active and autonomous partnership with these models. Now, why is this important to our postgraduates? The challenge that postgraduates face is the cognitive load of clinical duties often displaces academic management. There is patient care, ward rounds, clinical duty, emergency calls, and what gets pushed down is literature review, abstract submission, data collection. All this gets down on the funnel. So, is there a way that we can address this problem? Because research milestones often fail due to administrative friction and not lack of intent. This is also a very important issue. There's a velocity crisis. There is huge literature growth compared to what was just 5 years back. Every day we see 100 publications on the same topic. There's exponential volume of new papers. There are regulatory compliances with the institutional research board, the memorandums of understanding, and the safety protocols, which have become very strict. And the postgraduate has to adhere to all these norms. And there is intensive documentation demands when it comes to data reporting. This leads to a lot of cumulative stress, and often research takes a beating because of all this. So, is it possible that agentic AI may help us? So, this is what we are looking at. Now, as discussed earlier, we had one Dr. Rolika telling us that she fed some data into a model, and the data gave her random stuff with authors not being related to the paper at all. That is the generalist. That's the standard chat GPT, which is the generative pre-trained transformer. So it is prone to hallucinations. It's great for brainstorming and broad knowledge, but ignores your personal style, offers vague and generic responses. Now, welcome to the specialist. That's the custom GPT. So it's a specialized expert that is trained on your exact requirements. It gives precise outputs, follows specific publication rules, and uses only verified data. So welcome to the tool universe, which can aid an ophthalmology resident. And these are the various apps which are released. This keeps getting updated every 1 month. And if you look at what are the apps which are useful, this is the ultimate AI research toolkit. For literature search and discovery, I have used SciSpace and Consensus. SciSpace gives a very wonderful platform to do literature reviews, and you can actually talk to the papers there. And at the same time, Consensus gives answers which are yes, no, possibly based on papers. Next, literature mapping and connections. So as we had a discussion before this, there is research rabbit. So if you find a paper, you are interested in the paper, you want to know what was the chain of thought and what were the papers which were pre this and post this. Has the author published more on this topic? So you can always work, and your work would be very, very specific and not very diffuse. Looking at writing essence, once you start writing your paper, very often we note that we encounter writer's blocks. So for this, there are apps like PaperPal and Jenny AI, which will keep supporting you. They do not change the way you write. They keep whatever is your literature that you have accumulated over time. It just keeps prompting you at each point. Suppose you're going off road, they keep telling you that maybe you can try this, the same way that Grammarly works. And then you have specialized research tasks which are important. For example, Julius AI, it can do generate insights and graphs from your data set. You have applications which can search for grants, scholarships, and essay help. You have Petal and Anara, which can chat with library of PDFs to summarize and interrogate files. So quite amazing if you look at the toolkit that's getting updated every year. Now, with so many tools, how do we simplify this for our postgraduate? So this is what I propose: how to master the agentic research workflow. You're moving from passive chatbots like a Chat GPT, Perplexity, or Gemini to proactive research management. This is a paradigm shift. The architecture moves beyond standard chatting with AI. It implements a system prompt workflow where AI functions as a research manager, proactively handling logs, ethics deadlines, and literature synthesis while you retain scientific oversight. So the human is the director here. This is the architecture of the research stack. So first being discovery, second knowledge, third action, fourth analysis, and fifth integrity. Coming to deep discovery and grounded analysis. When you're looking for literature search, the biggest problem that we face with most of the large language models is the literature that gets generated is often not valid. It's not doesn't get validated, and it's presented in such a beautiful way that you may not understand whether it's correct or not. And as a first early postgraduate, it's very difficult to distinguish between what is good versus what is bad. So for this, the apps that I would recommend for the postgraduate is first identifying the gap. Suppose you are given a work that you have to find a study, your next thesis topic. They can go to SciSpace, search for the top 50 papers, go through each paper. You can give prompts like identify conflicting findings in recent trials. So move beyond, see, with prompts like more research. What are the spaces in this area that needs more research? Now, once you have identified papers, you save them. Then you go to Notebook LM. Notebook LM is an amazing app. All of you should try it. The good news is you can subscribe to it with a geo subscription for a period of 1 year. Comes free with it. It's with the Gemini Pro. So the advantage of Notebook LM is it is anchored only to the publications that you have analyzed and you have reviewed. So as I will show you in upcoming slides, how we can ground our research in our literature reviews. And the best thing about Notebook LM is zero hallucinations. Now, coming to how do you get the best from LLMs? So you need a perfect prompt. Perfect prompt is based on the concept that if you give a garbage prompt, you get a garbage outcome, garbage in, garbage out. So the prompts need to be very, very, very clear for the LLM to understand what you want. So this is one of the ways a prompt can be generated using stage framework, where you have S for strategy, T for tactics, A for action, G for guide, and E for examples. For example, you want to do a study on intraocular pressures and axial length progression. So you will start with a description that you are an ophthalmologist of 10 years experience and you are a researcher, and you want to work on come to the tactics. You want to look at how IOP is going to change the axial length, and you want to use action. You want to use NCT, you want to use Goldman applanation tonometry, you want to use CCT, and you will define exactly what kind of outputs you are expecting from the possible studies. And you will also tell what are the constraints, so what are the best practices, what the model should not go beyond. Exactly, do not speculate, maintain academic rigor. So this is a very important prompt that you should have in all of your academic prompts. And examples: show, don't tell. You have to give it an example. For example, children with a mean diurnal variation of more than 4 millimeters exhibit 15% faster axial growth. This kind of examples
perfect the prompt. You cannot give it prompts like, can you just tell me what are the various studies on IOP and axial length? It doesn't work that way. You need to give it a good prompt. So as I describe in the next slide, so this is a prompt generator website. They're available free of cost. So here I'm trying to generate a prompt saying find literature gaps in intraocular pressure management. So this is a standard prompt, or you want to go for a stage, care, race framework. This will generate the outcome in these particular fashions. And once you have decided what kind of framework you want to go with, you generate the prompt, and it takes around a few seconds to give you the prompt. It's already doing all the work. So you're a knowledgeable researcher in the field of ophthalmology with focus on IOP. Your expertise lies in identifying gaps. Your task is to identify literature gaps in treatment methodologies, recent advances, long-term outcomes. So you can see, and it's also given an example, example of introduction, how it wants the studies to be. You can also, on the right hand side, you can see that you can improve the prompt. Suppose you're not happy with the prompt, you can always change it. It aids you in adding a methodology. Are you exactly looking at methodologies? You want trials, you want qualitative studies, what are kind of options? You can just add it, and you can go back and regenerate the prompt. So now it's regenerating the prompt. We'll go up, and yeah. So you say generate the prompt, and now you have a new prompt all coming up there. Okay. Once you have this prompt, you will copy this prompt, and you can go to Notebook LLM. That's the app which is it's a very, very good app and provides a wonderful interface for performing research. So you have copied. This is the Notebook LLM interface. If you see on the left-hand side, you have the sources. So now we are going to enter the prompt that we got from the prompter, and we paste the prompt. And now we are not going for fast research. No, we don't want that. We go for deep research. This will take around 10 to 15 minutes. And once you are on that, as it says, it's working with you. This particular app, it's like your own as research assistant there without any funding. So it's planning, stay on this page. And if you see the middle component of the page is the chat, where you can chat with each paper. You can chat with the LLM itself, and and you can, if you suppose you have 10 projects that you're working on, and you can have individual notebooks for each of the project, and it will not move beyond that project. So it will not synthesize any literature. So now when we go, so this is says it has completed deep research and it has availed 53 sources. Now you populate your sources with these 53 sources which are deeply rooted in your study only. Now it is your work as a human to critique and analyze each of these 53 literatures. So instead of going to PubMed or Google Scholar, where you have to be filtering good versus bad, with a very good prompt, you can only decide what are the good ones versus the bad ones. So once you have the literature is loading all over there, and once the ones that don't get loaded are getting highlighted in red, you can delete them. And you have now the model is ready to chat with you. So it has given its own synthesis of a brief synopsis of all the 53 sources that it has obtained from here. And when you want to go back and look at each paper, you can open each paper. It gives a brief synthesis of what the paper says. Now it is your job to go through each of this. So that's very important here. So once you are done with this, you can move on to the next paper. You can change the prompt, add more literature to it. One more very interesting aspect of this model is the studio here. So the studio gives you all these options. Suppose you're having difficulty in understanding the paper, it can make a mind map for you so that you understand the paper better. We know postgraduates don't have time on their hands. They can always use this to understand papers. You can create infographics. Suppose you have to make a presentation, it helps you. It does a great job with that as well. So this is how we can use apps for literature search. But that's not enough. You need to maintain this particular agent that you have created on LLM. There's a feedback loop. You have to add new data to it. You have to add new PDFs to it. You have to update conversation starters, change the prompts. If you see that the behavior is changing or getting sloppy, you need to change the prompts. So it's a continuous cycle. So it's a feedback loop that you have to be the human in the loop. Now coming, what else can AI do for you? It can you can use Zapier Connect, and this agent will connect with your email ID, will connect with your Google Drive, will connect with your citation manager, and will keep giving you updates. For example, a trigger at 6 o'clock: what progress was made on your research today? In the last 10 days, you have not recruited any patients for your study. A reminder to recruit more patients. And it will also, suppose there's a new grant deadline that has been released, it will give you alerts about that as well. For example, you would have alerts like abstract submission for AO is in 10 days. Should I draft the abstract from your current log? So this is actionable intelligence that you're doing. It's not just a notifier that you get that the email has come. No, it's saying that I will draft it for you. Can I do it? It will look for grants, give you the required support, and you will be doing stuff a little more faster. So coming back to our architecture, coming to the analysis component, how can AI help us here? So this is Julius AI, which is the statistical consultant that I have used. And so what it does is you can upload your anonymized CSV data, that's your Excel data, and you can post a query like check for confounding variables in our primary outcome. So it writes the Python code. You can always cut, copy, paste the Python code and verify it again. So this is separating the mechanical task of coding from the intellectual task of analysis. So if we look at this slide, this is the data that I've generated from Kaggle. And the Kaggle is an online resource where you have a lot of data and you can use it to train your agents. And so if you see here, this is the data of 10 patients that I have taken. I'm going to copy this data and share it on Julius AI. And it's asking me, what do you want to analyze today? You paste it there, and so it starts its work. So this is something that you would do before you visit your statistician. So it helps you develop a deep understanding of what are the possible questions that you would be asking your statistician. You having an app does not mean that you don't need the statistician once you have your results. It just means that you're more prepared. You understand what your study is giving you exactly. And so it has it is, you can see the Python code being generated there, and the model is thinking and running code there. And it's thinking, so should I do summarize statistics, do I do counts, do I generate tables? And it's still thinking. It's not waiting for any reply for you. And it has cleaned up your data, given a division, and it's going to exactly tell you what kind of table sets. So those are the graphs that we'll be seeing soon down. So it has generated quick visuals. These are the bar graphs. You have the box plots. This is a very basic 10 patient study that I've uploaded. When you have 930 proteins and all, it does much more amazing work, but the data needs to be anonymized. So how else can AI be used? It can be the ethics board simulator. Once you have your proposal ready, you can add a prompt like critique my protocol for safety breaches. You can make the consent a little bit easier, convert clinical protocols into 8th grade level text. So you can simplify the informed consent. You can also draft letters of understanding. So there is reduced administrative overhead, because sometimes I really find these legal terms a little difficult. Does not mean you need not go through the legal end again, but it's, you are ready for all of it. Now when it comes to making images, there are a few rules which are important. What is prohibited is generative creation. So all the images that are created by all these LLM models are banned by major journals because they're unverifiable. But we can take graphical assistance from tools like BioRender, and you should always disclose your tool and version in the method section. What are the red lines of research integrity? One, privacy. Never upload identifiable patient spreadsheets to cloud AI, because you never know where it goes. Again, the IP ownership. So that is yours only, the human in loop. And in 2026, the Turnitin detection is almost 100%. It detects AI. So high scores lead to desk rejection, and you will just have a full stop in your research career. So don't use AI for making the document. So the human only manuscript boundary is there exactly that in brown. So there is human role only in discussion and conclusion. Your unique clinical perspective is the only meaningful defense against AI detectors. Write this from scratch. Please don't use any AI apps to write discussion. And whatever apps you're using, please disclose in the methods section. And coming, AI can also help you in submission. It can help you targeting journals using Jane or Elsevier Journal Finder based on your aims and scope. Of course, we use formatting tools like Grammarly and typeset.io, which is available on SciSpace. You can also change the styles, which we have been doing all this time. And suppose you get a letter back from the editor, and you can always ask the application to write up a rebuttal, but the scientific defense should remain yours only. So this is the summary checklist of the AI agentic architecture: discovery done, knowledge done, analysis done, writing help done, formatting done. But a mandatory disclosure statement is AI was utilized for literature mapping and administrative log management. The final manuscript and data interpretation are the sole work of authors. So what I always say is, don't automate the science, automate the management of science. So this is an image of the AI augmented medical researcher end-to-end agentic workflow from idea to submission. So what it does is, where a postgraduate would be lost till say the end of first year just trying to figure out what his study up is about, he or she figures out very early on what is the study, what are the expectations, what should he or she be doing, what is data analysis. Yes, they should be reading a lot, but at the same time they can always empower themselves with applications like this. So coming back to Ganesha here. So when Vyasa was dictating Mahabharata to Ganesha, he had absolute faith that Ganesha would be true to his word and he would give exactly what he expected. But this is not what happens in when we are working with large language models. So the ethical human in loop is a very important concept. So there is human input, but the biggest problem with AI research engines are they are black boxes, they are opaque models, non-deterministic outputs, and unregulated benchmarks. So we really don't understand how they work. So there is always the need of a human validation gate, which is critical review, fact checking, ethical check. What this means is, you as a resident can't say, I will stop reading, I will just use AI and I don't need to read anything. No, you should be reading and should keep critiquing your work always. So in conclusion, we find ourselves at a remarkable juncture in ophthalmology. We are moving rapidly from an era of simple disease detection to a future of precision and prediction with intelligent systems. But the administrative friction of modern medicine often stalls the very research that could save sight. My goal today was to show that our postgraduates and esteemed faculty that we don't need more hours in the day. We need a more robust architecture. By shifting from passive chatbots to agentic research stack, we transition from being overwhelmed participants to being human directors of a sophisticated digital workforce. And to our residents, tools like SciSpace, Notebook LLM, and Julius AI are not shortcuts. They are your cognitive partners. So much like the Ganesha Vyasa pact, you need to be the ethical human in loop, and you need to work with them as partners. And we should always respect the red lines of research. Privacy must be absolute, and discussion and conclusion should always be human. By mastering these agentic workflows, we don't increase our output, we elevate our clinical perspective. And let's leverage these intelligent systems to push the frontiers of eye research, ensuring that while technology evolves, the focus remains where it has always belonged, on our patients and the preservation of vision. So thank you so much.
Thank you so
And
much,
I would
ma'am.
like to thank my HOD, Dr. Anand Bandari, and Dr. Tanuja ma'am, Professor Dr. Tanuja ma'am, for lighting the spark of research in me. I would like to thank all my colleagues for encouraging research, and thank you so much. I'm open for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was a wonderful presentation. And I think the best part that I noticed was that to back up the fact that AI is positive in research. I think all your slides also, it must have taken it so much time, because I think a lot of them are AI generated, where you must have told what exactly you need in the slides. So
Yes.
that would have
So
taken
my
time to.
study itself is a proof of concept that AI is not crap. You can do good work with AI.
Absolutely. It's all about the mind that is behind giving the commands. So that's a very good example, ma'am. Can I ask Dr. Vanati, ma'am, to give her thoughts about the presentation and AI, of course?
Um, I think it was a lot of information on how you should effectively use AI to manage your work and not let AI manage, or take on or draw conclusions here. And I think I liked all the punchlines, and proud to listen to Sirisha. She has been her student and has moved away since she was a postgraduate with us, and really enjoyed the talk. I learned a lot on, and I think she has really sort of changed my perception of how you could use AI effectively to manage your research work and your research inputs here. But I think the punchline still remains, you adopt AI once you have mastered the humanized aspects of doing research. I think that is when you will really learn to put AI to best use and do not resort to AI as a first or as a primary intervention. I would always say use it as a secondary intervention after you have learned the humanized concepts of how to do research yourself, and then use these to help refine your attitudes or your way of looking at a particular concept. That is when it's really going to help you. Otherwise you will land up having a biased impression or a biased opinion about every little thing which you are looking into or you're feeding into. And a very strong word of advice to all our young minds is, please remember, if you resort to AI very early on, it's going to encourage your brain to rot. It's going to encourage your brain to do less of critical thinking. So, unless and until you have learned to critically analyze your own data, your own tables, your own study derivatives, and if you look at the AI to do this work for you, then probably you're not going to develop the acumen of critical thinking. And so don't allow AI to let you become retrograde or let you become redundant. That's the only thing. It's how intelligently you use AI to help you is what is going to take you along. I think all the others here would also agree to that aspect of how you should. It's good to know what all you have to help you to make your life easier, but in the process, don't become redundant.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, agreed. And I will just say that as a point of as the person who is writing researches, I think while writing research, as we are trying to give information out there, I'll end up learning more than I am actually writing in the paper. So it's like, even if the paper is just say, if you write a review article which is of say 30 pages, you will end up learning probably some 200 pages. So it's good for you when you do the research yourself. So that makes a lot of difference. Over to you, Ahan.
Yeah, that's truly insightful, and there is definitely a fine line, as all the experts have rightly pointed out. But I really liked the point on how, as a person who is working in a busy OPD, like all of us are, it gives us information on our fingertips. And thanks to Sirisha ma'am's slides, now we know how to get accurate information using agentic AI. So, can I ask Purvi ma'am to add on to some comments on that, please?
Firstly, congratulations, Dr. Sirisha. That was a very illustrative and beautifully demonstrated presentation. So again, all of us, and especially the younger generation, everybody is like getting washed away with this wave of AI into everything. But yes, the advantages are innumerable. They are various at various stages of practice, research, academia, everywhere. But the catch is in understanding its limitations, at least as of now. That one, it does not very well understand our context, our settings, our scenarios. Second is there is an inherent bias depending on what training data has been used for that particular model and tool. Third is the hallucinations that it has, because though it is known as artificial intelligence, actually it is not, its own intelligence that is using. It just dives into the data it has been fed with, and it brings out information which not might not always be correct. And the third thing is it depends on the versions you are using, and the tools you are using. Like chat gpt may be good for something else, perplexity may be good for something else. So each task that you want to do needs a different platform and a software. So where to use which one is also important. And it's becoming a crazy world that to generate, we need ai to understand how to generate the prompts. We need ai, and after having generated everything, again we need ai to see how much is ai and how much is human. So everything has to be dealt with very cautiously. And again, as emphasized, declaration is very, very important. It's not wrong to use ai, but it's wrong not to declare the use of ai. So whenever you're using ai, maybe for a presentation or for publication, writing a paper, its declaration is important, that for what purpose and for what aspects, during what stage of the entire work you had used, and which platform. And for writing especially, ai can never be the co-author or an author for anything, because it does not use its own intellect. It does not have hold any accountability for the work and the outputs it generates. So you cannot hold it as the main writer or the co-writer for whatever it has produced. That scientific, that responsibility and accountability lies with us. So that is where we have to be really, really cautious, because any wrong information produced, the that rope is on us then.
That's very true, ma'am. I really liked the points that you mentioned. Can I please invite Dr. Latika to give her comments on this?
Thank you, Dr. Han. Actually, that was, as a researcher, that was an overwhelming talk by Dr. Sirisha. A lot of eye-opener points for me there. And most of these models that you have described are familiar, though I have not used all of those. And I was just wondering whether the models like Julius AI, for example, is it a free one or is it a paid one? How about all those that you described at the different stages? Are those free to access for all researchers?
Ma'am, Julius AI has a basic application which is free. So it does small data sets which are not very heavy on it. But if you want the advanced versions, you need to pay for it. But now, recent update in Google Gemini, that's the notebook LLM. If you have a Geo subscription, you have 1 year free. You can avail it free, and it is also doing the same job which Julius was doing. So you
Okay.
can just do all your work on the notebook LLM now. So it's amazing. You should try it.
Yeah, thank. I just came to know about Notebook LLM during our KSO's Drishti conference, where there was an entire workshop on this, Notebook LLM. That was my first brush with it, and it was really, I mean, I found it very amazing. I have not gone into it, but your talk again prompts me to go into it. And my next doubt is actually to a question to Vanity Madam. Um, Actually, my experience as the immediate past editor of Kerala Journal of Ophthalmology is the basis of my question to Aniti Madam. I have been getting many articles which have declared they have given the credit to AI. And there's a declaration that correctly states that this image was generated using this particular AI, etc. But then Dr. Sirisha was just mentioning that generation of images itself is of two kinds, and there are some things that you cannot accept, some you can accept, etc. So there's a lot of gray area in that what is it that you should reject and what is it that you should accept. So is there any percentage of like plagiarism? We have a particular percentage that is acceptable on Turnitin. In AI, what is that percentage? I'm not aware of that. So are there any specifics regarding publication ethics where, as an editor, what you can accept and what you cannot accept, Vanti Madam?
Okay, so let's look at it in two aspects. Are you asking about plagiarism with reference to major articles like original articles or review articles, or are you asking about plagiarism with respect to generated AI images, which we are looking at case reports, ophthalmic images, or such formats?
Actually, I was asking about both generated images in sometimes review articles. They have AI generated images accompanying review articles. That was one thing. And the second was that sometimes even in original articles, in the language, in the manuscript
Yeah,
preparation, they are using AI.
of
So
course,
they are
yeah.
declaring it also.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. I just wanted to know that we are on the same page on what we are discussing. See, when you're looking at AI, when you're looking at text of original articles or when you're looking at text as review articles, is when plagiarism comes into a lot of play. Ideally, there should be no plagiarism in any articles. Whatever you're writing is something original. It is your own human thought and concept, and it's driven by your own research acumen and your academic knowledge here. So plagiarism should be almost nil, but ideally it is not going to happen. So if you even put anything into an authenticate or into any of your plagiarism softwares, it's going to pick up even common terminologies which are being used as a similarity index here. So that's when you will have to go and also analyze the plagiarism report which the particular software is offering to you to look at what is it's picking up as plagiarism in that particular art. Sometimes it will show it's say less than 2%, but it would have even marked out, and it would be say common aspects like something, if you're looking at pressure index, you're looking at corneal thickness, even those words would be picked up. So then you would know that you would not place a lot of importance to such a report here. But then you will have sometimes something like 100 words picked up from one particular internet source, which could be something when someone did a Google search, and Google came up with so many of the other other similar net sources which were writing on the subject, and the researcher has been intelligent enough to some pick up something which is very remote and put it in. Okay, so those are not acceptable. So when I take my tolerance for plagiarism is very, very, very poor here, the meaning that I would do not accept any tolerance. But when you look at review articles, something around say 8 to 12% is something which you would accept here. That is also when you go and analyze the authenticate report which it offers to you, where you look at each of the things and you can match the report. It will also tell you from which source, which page, number of words, everything is given in the report here. And that's when you have to go and see how valid is my authenticate or the plagiarism report and the similarity index which it is showing. When you're looking at AI generated images for review article, is a definite no. It's a definite. So you can use AI generated images for making your flyers, for making your, for making your PPT presentations, for some other, general, dissemination of information. But it is not acceptable. We actually do not encourage even our postgraduate students to pick up slides from the nets. We tell them, you're talking about a clinical condition. Please use your own clinical images of patients whom you have seen or have been seen in the center, and acknowledge the particular author who has probably allowed you to use his or her image here. So no AI generated image is really going to be acceptable, and that is a definite no when you are looking at articles here. You could probably use any of these image enhancement softwares to enhance your particular image. Okay, and that is something which you could probably, and most if you find, and this a lot of this happens in retina, where they do enhance their images a lot here. And though there are particular softwares which really help them for better viewing of your particular details here, I think it stops there. And you would not probably want, even if you're going to declare that I used AI, you could probably use AI to, even if you look at Grammarly, it's a very basic form of an artificial intelligence which helps you to refine your literature writing, and it helps you to refine your grammar. It sort of stops there, and rest of your inputs and rest of the academic knowledge which you are disseminating should be particularly yours.
Thank you, madam. Actually, Regarding the images, maybe I should have been clearer in my prompt, so-called prompt. That is,
Yes.
I was not talking about clinical images. I was talking about the schematic diagrams that you sometimes accompany certain articles. The clinical images, of course, as you said, it is not acceptable. But the schematic diagrams, sometimes they mention that it is generated using the AI. I mean, it's not a fundus image or a clinical picture, but it is not, it is A generated, that's all. And similarly, the plagiarism part also, I mean, I was wondering whether the same rules for plagiarism apply as such to the AI also. AI, because some guidelines say that AI is not like plagiarism, and it is having a separate publication ethic. That is what got me confused actually.
Currently, I think all journals do not take in AI into their writing, and they do have it in their copyright form. If you look at most of the Western ones, most of the American journals, they do have it in their copyright form that you will have to declare that I have not used AI for generation of any part of the publication which I am, of the manuscript, or which I am submitting for publication. And I think IGO is also going to shortly have an AI detection tool into it as well. We are working on it. I think most of the publishers are now incorporating AI detection tools into their system here. And please remember, anything which is written out of AI is going to give you a very high similarity index when you're doing a plagiarism check. And that
Yes.
itself alerts. And if I have a plagiarism check of, say, 35% on a meta analysis or a systemic analysis, I'm not even, it's going to be a straight out desk rejection. And this was a question which I was going to pose to Dr. Purvi, I think, who also has a lot of editorial experience. That what are your thoughts and inputs on AI detection tools and your experience with them? Because I'm still learning, and I would really appreciate some help in this sector.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Vanati. And actually, I had raised my hand to comment on this topic also. About the plagiarism, as Dr. Vanati has very rightly said, but you have to look at the overall sites where the plagiarism has been flagged, because there would be certain definitions which are not, good for paraphrasing, or it is not appropriate to paraphrase or summarize them without changing their meaning. And that is why some amount of plagiarism has been considered as acceptable, because there are lots of places, and especially talking of scientific and technical terms, you cannot change them. So all journals have their own range of plagiarisms, but usually on an average something like 10 to 12% is considered acceptable, understanding that these changes cannot be done. Talking of AI, again, your question about images and figures. So, as you said, that clinical images and all those images, fundus, patient related, and everything, all that scientific stuff, if it is AI generated, is not acceptable at all. And it's not only that it is AI generated, but we don't know what the original source of that image is. So there would be a very, very high risk of plagiarism in that, because from where it has fetched that data, we don't know. Like, there have been incidences where images have been actually published, and later on it was found that it actually belonged to some other authors. So since we do not know the origin of those images, it's a strict no. Talking of all those, simple schematic diagrams, like just maybe somebody, means if suppose I'm not a good artist, I cannot draw a good diagram of an eye, or a cross section of an eyeball, or maybe a simple flow chart, organogram. So for those simple things, if AI has been used, that is okay, because even earlier lot of softwares were there, like the Paint was there, Adobe Photoshop was there, where we used to draw diagrams and everything. So now the AI has come up which does the same thing. So if you're talking of those kinds of simple images, it is acceptable, because they are mainly just, it's taking just the artist form, and it does not have much scientific, attachment to it. It's just the artistic and creative point of view that we are talking of. Regarding how much AI is acceptable, currently there are no such percentages defined, because it's all on, depends on for what purpose it has been used. Is it for language improvement, like my English is not good and I just want to improve on my English? Is it for that? Is it for refinement of the content, or some modification, or check, like correction of plagiarism or something like that? So all those conditions vary. And because of that variability, it is very, very, as of now, as of today, it's very difficult to, put up a percentage. So we have to see, like, for looking at the article and reviewing it, does it look acceptable or does it not look acceptable? Yeah.
Thank you.
And again, that catch is still there, that even if it's 100% AI generated, all those AI tools like GPT-0 and other tools, they can put a human percentage to it. And even if it is 100% human generated, somebody might really be a very good writer. But even if you put it into AI, it will still flag as some percentage having as AI, even if it's 100% truly human generated. So again, putting any manuscript or work through AI and relying on its percentage today is still a little dicey. So we have to, in these conditions, rely on a human instinct and our own understanding and then decide.
Right, ma'am. Right, ma'am. Thank you so much, Purvi ma'am, Vanati ma'am, Latika ma'am, for your valuable insights into this crucial topic, the crucial transition that we are having now with AI. And now I request Dr. Ravindra sir to add on to insights on this aspect also, if possible, with his topic on publication ethics. And sir, please go ahead, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
My slides are visible?
Yes,
Yes.
sir. Perfect.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ahan, for your kind words. A very good evening to all the respected dignitaries present over here. At the outset, I would like to thank the team AIOS GuruSangam for giving me such a platform to speak before you. I'll be discussing today on publication ethics. There is no conflict of interest and no financial support and sponsorship for my presentations. Publication of scientific manuscript remains as our core method of sharing knowledge and advanced scientific inquiry. Nowadays, pressure to publish for reasons other than pure discovery have the potential to corrupt this process. So, knowing the core principles of scientific ethics can guide us to maintain the integrity of our scientific process. With this background, the learning objective of my today's presentation is to know the various ethical issues related to publications and to make use of guidelines issued by national and international organizations for publication ethics. The breach in ethics can be either intentional or may be due to ignorance. Whatever may be the cause of this ethical breach, it is regarded as professional misconduct. And it always needs punishment because it breaches the trust of the general public. Further, ignorance is not an excuse for this professional misconduct. So, one should know the different ethical principles to prevent this ethical breach in the research. Coming to the issues on publication ethics, it is currently guided by different international organizations and national organizations. International Committee of Medical Journal Editors and Committee of Publication Ethics are the main international organizations which guides on definitions and algorithms to check the issues on publication ethics. Suppose coming to national organizations, suppose a person want to do a drug trial, sponsored drug trials, he or she should have take the permission from the Ethics Committee of Drugs Control General of India. If someone wants to do a clinical trial, the trial must be registered in the Clinical Trial Registry of India. Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR, has also provided guidelines for doing research in the India, and it has issued several ethics of publications. One should go through that. So, a researchers or authors should currently updated on this organization's issues on publication ethics. Coming to the different components of publication ethics, one should know what do you mean by ethics review or breach of confidentiality? What is data fabrications and falsifications? What do you mean by authorship actually? And what is plagiarisms? What are the different ethics related to submission of articles? What do you mean by conflict of interest? And what do you mean by paper mill? Coming to the first one, ethics review or breach of confidentiality. Whenever someone want to do a research on human or animal, it is always essential to take ethics committee approval from the institute as per the national guidelines. And informed consent is a must when you are conducting a study on humans. These two, ethics committee approval and informed consent, is a must, because whenever you will submit a article to any journals, they will ask for these two. Unless and until you provide them, they are not going to accept your articles. Further, this informed consent should always be taken in local language, preferably. And this informed consent must be kept for a long time, preferably for 5 years from the termination of your study. And I have already discussed this clinical trial must be registered with the Clinical Trial Registry of India before doing a clinical trial. Regarding the data confidentiality, it should be maintained, and sharing the data from one institute to another institute should not be practiced. PG students have the habit of sharing their data of thesis to a friend from other institute to do the statistical calculations. It should not be practiced. Even if it is required, you should take the permissions of the institute head. Coming to fabrications and falsifications. Fabrications, we mean here the research results are not generated from the study. Falsifications, here the research results are generated by manipulating the data. Both falsifications and fabrications are severe form of misconduct. One should not do this. Most of the times, there is a condition appears that you may, to scrutinize your data, you should defend to scrutinize your data. Sometimes you may fall into scrutinize your data. In that case, to defend this misconduct, one should preserve this data of this research for sufficiently long time. Coming to an examples of fabrications. Suppose a PG student is doing a clinical study on diabetic retinopathy with a planned sample size of 100 patients. Only 65 patients actually come for examinations during his or her tenures. So to complete the thesis on time, the students creates a record of 35 imaginary patients by inventing age, vision, fundus finding, and OCT values of the patients. And he enters these fake values into the Excel and SPSS softwares. And the analysis is done on 100%. But this 35 never existed. So this is an example of fabrications where data was created and the results are never existed. Coming to an examples of falsification, again come to an PG students conduct a study on central serous retinopathy and serum cortisol levels. 80 patients are enrolled and the real data are collected. Initial analysis shows no statistical significant association. The students then, what he did, delete patients with normal cortisol levels, alters OCT measurement slightly, crop fundus photos to exaggerate the findings. After manipulation, the result became statistically significant. It is an example of falsification where there has been manipulation has been done. Coming to third, authorship. Authorship, it confers credit, responsibility, and accountability of the published work. It should be decided at the beginning of the study itself. Each author should know clearly about his responsibility. Nowadays, it is mandatory to declare the contribution of each author before submitting your article to any reputed journal. The International Committee of Medical Journal Editors has given criteria for authorship. One should fulfill these 4 criteria to have authorship. Number 1, he or she should have substantial contribution to the conception and design of the work, or acquisitions, analysis, or interpretation of the data for the work. He should have drafted the work and revising it critically for important intellectual content. He should have given final approval of the versions to be published, and he should have an agreement for the accountability for the accuracy and integrity of the work. One should fulfill these 4 criteria to have a authorship in an article. Coming to some common misconduct with authorship, ghost authorship. What is that? Those who contribute substantially for the development of papers but are not given authorship, they are also called orphan authors. For example, they are usually the paid authors or paid manuscript writers. So they should be at least acknowledged if they are not given authorship. Another is gifted authorship. These persons do not have significant contributions, but included in the list of co-authors simply due to affiliation of the institute. For example, head of the department or head of the institutes are usually gifted as authorship even if they have no contribution to that research work. It should not be practiced. Another is guest authorship. It is usually given or provided to the individuals whose presence as co-author increase the chance of publication in a reputed articles. So it should not be practiced because they don't have any contribution to this research work. So certain best practice to prevent authorship dispute. Most of the time we have seen that there is authorship dispute in a research articles. So it is best to initiate discussion about authorship at the beginning of the research itself, and the final list of order of authorship should be before writing the research articles. It is always advisable to have a written agreement with signature of all the co-authors to prevent the battle in the legal field. Coming to acknowledgements. Individuals who do not meet all the criteria of authorship, but they have made important contribution of the research work should be acknowledged. For example, funding sources by some agencies or statisticians who are doing your statistical work, or persons who are supervising your data and data collection and proofreadings, they should be at least acknowledged if they are not fulfilling the criteria of authorship. So it is always desirable to have written permission from these acknowledged persons because they are responsible for some work of the research. Coming to ethics related to your submission of articles. Simultaneous submissions. It means submitting the same manuscript at different journal at the same point of time. Duplicate submissions. It is submitting the already published manuscript as a new manuscript to another journals. Self-citation means citing own publication out of context. And predatory journals, you should identify the predatory journals because they hardly do any peer review. I will explain each one with an example. Suppose a PG students prepare a manuscript from the thesis on diabetic retinopathy. The paper is submitted to journal A. Without waiting for the decision, the same manuscript is again also submitted to journal B at the same point of time. And the both journals start peer review simultaneously. This is an example of simultaneous submissions which one should not practice. Because why? Because it violates the journal declarations of exclusive submissions. Whenever we submit an article to any journals, in the cover page itself, we write a declaration that we are submitting the article exclusively to one journal and this journal only. So it is violating that principles. And it also wastes editors and reviewers' time. So if you do a simultaneous submissions, it leads to rejections and retraction of your articles. Even you may be blacklisted from the journal as well as from the journal members also. So the correct practice is to submit one journal at a time, submit elsewhere only after rejection or formal withdrawal is being done. Coming to duplicate submissions, suppose again a PG student publish a study on diabetic retinopathy prevalence in journal A. The same patient, same data, same tables and conclusions are later published in another journal, journal B. By changing only the title and wordings are changed. This is a case of duplicate publication. It should not be practiced. Salami slicing is also a type of duplicate publications. For example, it is a single study and suppose a single study on 120 diabetic retinopathy patients is conducted. And from the same data set, from the same experiment, multiple papers are being published separately. One article on demographic profile of the patients, one article on severity of gradings, one article on visual acuity outcomes of the diabetic retinopathy patients. So this is salami slicing. So the key difference between these two is that duplicate publication, same study published again, it is duplicate publication, whereas salami slicing, one study inappropriately split into many papers. Coming to self-citation, again coming to a PG student, suppose a PG student previously published a paper on diabetic retinopathy in a journal. While writing a new manuscript on the same subject, the student cites their own earlier paper multiple times to increase the visibility. This self-citation further are used, even more relevant external study exist in these articles. So this is purely unethical because it artificially inflates the citation count of the authors, and it creates a bias in the literatures and a confusion in the mind of the readers also. So the key point one should remember here is that limited, relevant self-citation is acceptable and excessive and unnecessary self-citation is unethical. One should be able to identify the predatory journals. Suppose a PG student receives an email promising the publication from their journal within 5 to 7 days. And the journal claims it has a high impact factor. It is not indexed, though it is not indexed in PubMed and Scopus, it is indexed in other indexing agencies. And immediately it has a high publication fee is demanded immediately. And the article is accepted without peer review or revisions. So why this is a predatory journal? Because here no genuine peer review is being done. Fake and misleading ethnic metrics are advertised in its journal page, and it exploits the author for money. So the key point to remember is that publishing in predatory journals harms academic credibility. So be aware of these predatory journals and try to avoid submitting in this type of journals. Coming to plagiarism, much has been discussed regarding plagiarisms in AI. But what is plagiarism? Plagiarism means use of previously published manuscript by someone for his or her manuscript, or unreferenced use of other published or unpublished idea without consent, credit, and acknowledgement is known as plagiarism. It is the most common issue faced by each researchers. The most common form of plagiarism is copying text word for word. It is commonly being done, and it is considered as a serious publication misconduct. Come to different types of plagiarism. Direct plagiarism. Direct plagiarism is nothing but complete or partial copying without acknowledging the original authors. There is another term called self-plagiarism. It is duplicating one previously published papers, which I have already discussed in the manuscript submissions ethics. And redundant publication and salami publications is publishing similar manuscript for the same experiment piecemeal wise. It should not be practiced. So these are the certain tips by which you can avoid plagiarisms, avoid copy pasting, spend more time with your papers as well as your references, and write the concept in your own words. And always acknowledge the original resources, even it is unpublished data also. cite the reference accurately. Nowadays, there are a lot of software available like reference managers and Mendeley software, because unless and until you write the reference in a proper way, no journals is going to accept your articles. Always avoid salami publications because it will create confusion in the mind of readers. And always use anti-plagiarism software like Orkund, Authenticate, and Turnitin before submitting your article to any good journal. Coming to the conflict of interest. It is disclosure of financials, personal, social, or other interests related to your research should always be disclosed before submitting your articles, because it directly or indirectly influences the conduct of the authors with respect to the manuscript. For example, researchers conducting a drug trial funded by pharmaceutical company. The pharmaceutical company have some interest in your research. So you should identify this conflict of interest and you should disclose it before submitting your article to any journals. This is an example of conflict interest. Suppose a researcher evaluates two drugs and receives funding and consultancy fee from one company and does not disclose the relationship in the papers. It is purely unethical because it results in it may bias the results and interpretations because of conflict of interest. So the key point one should remember in this is that conflict of interest is not an misconduct, but non-disclosure of conflict of interest is purely unethical. Nowadays, another new term is evolving that is called paper mills. Paper mills are the organizations that produce and sells fraudulent research paper for money. These papers contains fabricated and falsified data and manipulated images. And here the authorship is sold to individuals who do not even conduct the research. Paper mill seriously undermines the scientific integrity and trust of the normal peoples. If detected, it can lead to retraction of your articles. You may be blacklisted from the journal and its associated journal members. It may also ruin your careers in academic research purposes. So one should be aware of these paper mills. So if you breach in ethics, it is known as research misconduct. Committee of Publication Ethics describe this breach of ethics or research misconduct. The consequences depends on the type of misconduct, whether it is a major one or a minor one. If it is a major one, authors can be blacklisted by the member journals, and editor may write to the institute head so that institution can take action against you. So there are certain consequences of breach in publication ethics before publications and after publications. Suppose this breach in ethics is detected before publications, paper is outrightly rejected, and institute head is informed about your deed, and the institute will take deemed action against you. If it is sometimes what happens, this breach in ethics is also detected after publication also. In that case, if it is a major breach in ethics, paper may be revoked and you will be blacklisted by the journal and its associated journal members. If it is a minor one, then you may be given a chance by the editor to write a erratum in the journal for self-confessions. So these are the certain checklist of publication ethics for the authors, reviewers, and editors one should follow. Check. First, number one is check the approval and consent. Either approval has been taken properly from the regulatory authority or institutional review board or ethics committee or not, one should check. If it is a clinical trial, it should be registered in the clinical trial registry of India. And this documentation of informed consent is a must in every research. One should be aware of this. And you should always check for the data accuracy, like falsification and fabrications is there or not. And any manipulation of materials, equipment, process, or data should be checked. And always double check of the data before submission of your article to any journals. Coming to plagiarism and self-plagiarism, one should check this plagiarism because a lot of software is nowadays available in the internet. You should check the plagiarisms, and it is always a zero. As madam told, it is a zero tolerance for plagiarisms in every aspect. Try to make it zero, though you may get 10 to 12% due to this AI involvement, but try to make it zero. And use of your own prior work and other work should not be exercise should not be done in a exaggerated manners, and it should have the written permissions for the reproduced materials, figures, and tables what you are using in your articles. So submission fraud should be checked by editors, like simultaneous submissions to two journals is there or not by cross-referencing these articles. If editor suspect that there is a simultaneous submissions, he or she can cross-reference with the editor of other journal to check for submission fraud, and whether there is a previous publication of entire work or part of the content is there or not. Once the editor will also check, and you should not do this submission fraud. And excessive citations of own publication is always to be avoided. Coming to ethics of authorships, inclusion of all the authors in a specific pre-agreed order should be done. No authors will be left out. An agreement awareness of the co-authors and the content should be done. And inclusion of any ghost or gifted or guest authors should not be practiced. And the conflict of interest should always be declared before writing any manuscript and submitting any manuscript. So the take-home message of my today's presentation is that integrity is non-negotiable in research and publication. Integrity, as we know, integrity means doing good things even no one is watching also. This is integrity. It is non-negotiable, and in research and publications, quality matters more than quantity of publications. So do quality research, not go after quantity. Always be honest, transparent, and accountable to your work, what you have done, and follow this ICME, JE, and COPE guidelines as well as your institute guidelines where you are working. And when in doubt, always seek guidance. Do not compromise ethics. These are my references and acknowledgements from which I have prepared my presentations. Thank you very much for your kind attentions.
Thank you, Ravindra sir, for your wonderful insights on the topic of publication ethics. Because of time constraints, can we have only one expert commenting on this particular domain of publication ethics, please? Any volunteers, if any?
Can I?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Yeah. Or Dr. Vanati, maybe. Yeah.
After you, Dr. Purvi.
Yeah. No, that's a very important topic that Dr. Chaudhary has brought up, and in no way can ethics, be ignored at all. It's really, really a very serious offense. And with the use of AI that is coming up, it's all becoming more of concern because data falsification has become very easy. Data fabrication has become very easy, in attempt to achieve the sample size that was declared, in an attempt to achieve the p values that has been put into the research thing. So it's really, really very important. The question here is how much of all these errors have occurred out of ignorance and how much is intentional. So that is where actually the line lies. So small ignorance like a casual plagiarism or some other aspects are okay. They need they can be improved upon by awareness and education, but intentional and data integrity compromise is absolutely a very serious matter, and it's a strict no for all those things.
right, ma'am. Vanati, ma'am, your inputs.
I think that was a very comprehensive coverage of publication ethics. A few points just to add on to what Sir already mentioned is one should remember that publication ethics not only apply to a person who's writing an article or who's doing a research. It's not only to the authors, it's not only for the researchers, but it also applies for the reviewers, for the editors. And that's important that, in whatever aspect or whatever role we play in the process of a manuscript publication, each of it has to be performed with utmost honesty, integrity, and following ethics here. A few more aspects to add on to Sir's talks is that if the publication ethics has not been followed, and if there's a falsification or a plagiarism detected post publication, then the journal can order, or the journal can get a retraction, will get a retraction of the article rather than getting an erratum if you find the publication is really having a significant quotient of plagiarism, or the particular journal from which this has been copied, and that journal raises a complaint, then the journal in which it is published will retract the article here. An erratum is for some things. For example, an author was omitted in the particular, or there was a error in the particular manuscript which was published. Then an erratum can be can be used to correct that particular aspect. And another one is that today, when you are declaring the contributions of authors for a particular publication, it has also become mandatory that you please remove all aspects of patient identifying details, names, their identity details of the patient, or your hospital ID, hospital names. All these are patient identifying characteristics present on either imaging modalities or any other investigations, or if you're using patient photographs, be it images in which you can't identify the patient, because all the data belongs to the patient. So you will have to give an author's declaration that the patient's consent has been obtained for use of either patient's face photographs, of any other imaging photographs, for purpose of educational purposes or for publication. So this declaration is also now mandatory when you are publishing specifically case reports, or ophthalmic images, or such relevance, where you are going need to reveal the particular parts of the patient's image, face photographs of something. And again, if you are using probably a figure from your own publication in another journal, or if you're using a figure from another author's publication, you will have to obtain copyright permission from the publisher of that particular journal before you're reproducing that particular figure, or a particular table in your publication. So these are also, I think, several authors are probably not aware of these intricacies. So these also need to be followed as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for your insights. Just before we proceed on to the next talk by Sharmishta, ma'am, I'd like the viewers, we have a live audience. I'd like the viewers to please add on their questions in the comment section of YouTube. We have immense knowledge here on this talk with experts like Manati ma'am, Purvi ma'am, and also speakers here. So please add on your questions if any. You won't get an opportunity like this. And with that said, I request Dr. Sharmishta ma'am to proceed with her topic on approach to case-based long questions for residents.
Just a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, is it visible?
No, ma'am. Have you turned on the share option for screen sharing?
Yeah, just a minute.
Yes, ma'am. Your screen is being shared now. I can see that.
Yeah, is it visible now?
I can see the folder, but the presentation is yet to be seen, ma'am.
Is it okay? No?
No, ma'am. I'm still not able to see the presentation.
Ma'am, you can unshare your screen, open the presentation, and then when you are sharing the presentation, this choose the screen of the presentation and it will automatically come. Yeah. Now when you share the screen,
Is it visible now?
Yes, ma'am. Perfect. Now, ma'am, put it on slideshow, ma'am, and it will be fine.
Thank you
Yes,
so much, Dr. Rolika.
no problem.
So, very good evening, all of you. It has been a very great learning for me, and thank you for adjusting me in this session of Guru Sangam. Actually, mine is a off-track topic. It is approach to case-based long questions for the residents. While today's session is the main course, rich, heavy research methodology that everyone is digging into, mine is like a pickle on the side. It is a small, sharp, and specifically crafted to help residents cut through the heaviness of case based long questions. And these are perfectly tangy bite to clinical reasoning and structured answers. So now I declare here, after all the learning, today's learning, that I have used ChatGPT to create images. Now, why this case-based long questions? They help in clinical reasoning, prioritization of decision making, study on the basic science, clinical ophthalmology and public health, and communication and ethical awareness, which lead to the diagnosis and ultimately the treatment. Then we can just shorten it to a 5-step approach to ease it out for the residents. First is localization of the lesion, like the main key points that are given in the case scenario. Then study the pattern. Then the most likely diagnosis out of the differential diagnosis that can be sorted out, and what helps to confirm it from the investigations, and then a comprehensive treatment and care pattern. Now, the first is we should when the resident should think briefly, and from the given case scenario, they can take up the age, the gender, the key symptoms provided, the duration of the symptoms, and then any risk factor or comorbidity that is associated. Then focus on the differential diagnosis. Like suppose one example is given that a 58-year-old diabetic male presents with painless progressive diminution of vision in the right eye for 6 months. Then we think it could be a diabetic cataract, a senile cataract, or any other diabetes related retinal disease. Then further, a structured history or a targeted and not a very general thing, presenting complaints, the risk factors associated both systemic and ocular, a drug history or surgical history, and again the risk factors are taken into account. And then comes investigations, the history taking, evaluation and investigation. Then a total systemic evaluation is done, followed by ocular examination proper. And then the special tests related to the case are discussed. And here I would like to tell the residents that the examiner always loves phrases like to rule out, to confirm, or to grade the severity. Now, investigations, like what investigations should be done, why they should be done, and what it shows. For example, like OCT macula is done to detect the DME and guide the treatment. Now, management, what should be the emergency management, the definitive, the medical conservative management, surgical and follow-up and counseling, patient education, prognosis, and public health relevance should be taken into account. What happens is, like most of the medical college teachers who have been invigilators over their tenure would agree that some students, some residents, they think they go on and on taking additional papers. So they write whatever they know about the topic that is given instead of concentrating on the mark division or the mark schedule. Like we for a 25 mark case based long question breakup, the problem representation would be 2 marks, differential diagnosis 3, history likewise. So what the student does is they go on writing volumes thinking that the volumes would fetch marks, but it is not like that. One should focus and write on the case scenario that is given. Then a smart answer writing tips would include a student should first of all think what should be my approach. So the do's would include proper headings, subheadings, and flowcharts wherever possible. The tables for differentiating between different differential diagnosis. Underline the key terms like the diagnosis, investigation, and management, like it's given here as examples. So, what are the don'ts? The don'ts would include paragraph dumping, that is, again, I would repeat, asking for additionals and writing things repeatedly, thinking that volumes can fetch marks, writing rare diagnosis first, one should know the priorities, forgetting the follow up and the counseling, ignoring the systemic association. So, like an example is given. Suppose the diagnosis is related to uveitis, then we suddenly did not go for the first as OCT instead of going for a thorough slit lamp examination and photography. So, we would, as a teacher, I would say we should think like a clinician and write like an examiner. The golden rules for the residents would be the structure should be more elaborately explained than the content, justifying every step and align the answers with the marks given. So here I tried to put an answer as a sample to the case scenario that was given. 11-year-old came to IOPD with pain, redness, lacrimation in his left eye following blunt trauma. On examination, he had visual acuity of hand movement, traumatic mydriasis, hyphema of grade 2, intraocular pressure of 50 millimeters of mercury, and the question was to discuss the management. Suppose say this is for 25 marks. Uh, the resident has correctly on the left hand side given written very well the given case, complaints of redness, lacrimation, pain, and then all these features point out towards traumatic hyphema with secondary glaucoma and traumatic mydriasis. Likewise, the management has been scheduled gonioscopy, B scan, UBM, CT, CBC, the routine hemogram. What would have been better here? If you just make it a flow, this is my AI generated image. One cannot definitely draw these diagrams, but the flow chart can be taken up. You can put it up as history and underline it and highlight the features so that the examiner can mark it properly. The same question is written like actually it's very well written, but the thing is one can put it in a schematic way, in a catchy way. So here the management of grade 2 hyphema with the corneal staining and elevated intraocular pressure, it is given. If it is a grade 2 hyphema, if there is a cloudy cornea and the pressure is more than 50 millimeters mercury, what one should do, what happens if you delay surgery, what is the medical management in steps, what are the pressure lowering agents in steps, and then the other accessory medications like NSAIDs and antibiotics wherever necessary, cycloplegics. The same thing here, it goes on. The final stage of the treatment, trabeculectomy has been advised. And then the schematic approach to trabeculectomy has been, because it's a 25 marks question, this has been explained. Here also we can just structure our answer and highlight and write accordingly. These are the latest steps of the trabeculectomy. Partial thickness scleral flap is created. All the steps are again given. And finally, suturing of the conjunctival flap also has been very well mentioned by the student. And these are the adjunctive therapy that can be given, MMC, 5-fluorouracil, everything is given. I just wanted to show that the same thing can be better projected if we give it in a flowchart manner by highlighting points. So this is the same thing. If the question carries 25 marks, we can elaborate and write as was shown. And if the same question carries lesser marks at 10 marks, then we can put it up in a single page or maximum 2 pages by just writing the points and not elaborating each step. This is another case scenario of a 45-year-old man with high myopia using minus 15 diopter spherical, minus 5 diopter cylinder at 180 degrees in the right eye and minus 4 diopter with minus 1 diopter cylinder in the left eye came to the OPD complaining of diplopia and diminished vision. Here we have to discuss the approach to the patient and which operative procedure would best serve this young person. Then here again the student has given the management, suggested the management for this case, starting with trial of glasses, contact lens, has described about the Jack-in-box phenomenon and the surgical management in steps very nicely given. Refractive surgery, cornea-based procedures, lens-based procedures, and preoperative evaluation of central corneal thickness and all the necessity of pachymetry, everything is given. The same thing could be better given in a schematic manner, highlighting the points. So then to continue with all the cornea related procedures, radial keratotomy, astigmatic keratotomy, photorefractive keratectomy, LASIK, customized LASIK. This same thing is given. So if the student would have added on with some schematic diagrams here, that would have fetched more marks. Then the lens-based procedures, phakic intraocular lens, intracorneal ring implantation, orthokeratology. Again, some addition of some diagrams would have been more mark fetching. Then this is a slide which shows high myopia management, use of contact lenses, risk factor. This is a summary of the case. Now, if the question would have had lesser marks, we could have given this way the answer. This is a same repetition of the same thing. Then I have similar examples to give. A 52-year-old male presented with sudden painless loss of vision in the left eye since 1 hour. He is a known case of hypertension and on medication. On examination, RAPD was present in the left eye. Rest within normal limits in both eyes. Visual acuity is 1/60 in the left eye and 6/9 in the right eye. On fundus evaluation, there is milky white retina with cherry red spot in the macula in left eye. Other eye is normal. The question is, what is the diagnosis and how to manage this patient? Name 2 complications. Now in this case, it's very clear for the residents, if you have already known, the case analysis would reveal that it is a case of central retinal artery occlusion. So this being a medical emergency, you can sort out the case and write in the exam. I have written in very short. Now CRAO is ophthalmic emergency. So immediate lowering of intraocular pressure using IV mannitol, intermittent ocular massage, fibrinolytic therapy, laser therapy would suffice. Then another case, a 35-year-old female presents with erythematous swollen left eye worsening over past 2 days, having fever, marked eyelid swelling, tenderness, proptosis with chemosed conjunctiva, extraocular movements are restricted in all directions in the left eye. Other eye is within normal limits. Visual acuity is normal in both eyes, no RAPD, fundus is within normal limits. Here, the diagnosis would be orbital cellulitis. So we would go for cultures, orbital CT, antibiotics, and then would go for intensive management on admission. So step-by-step approach for a left eye for the orbital cellulitis would be summarize the case, safety first, rule out emergencies, rule out orbital compartment syndrome, do the investigations, plan the management, and describe accordingly. So the ultimate summary would be like have in mind what are the things you would address and then write accordingly. Another case of neuroophtha, a 40-year-old male presents with sudden onset of drooping of the left eyelid and he has severe headache, no significant medical history. On examination, he had ptosis in the left eye with dilated pupil. Left eye is down and out. Extraocular movements like adduction, elevation, depression are reduced. Other eye is within normal limits. What is the diagnosis? What is most likely cause? What is the management? Like this image wouldn't be given in the question paper. The answer would be third nerve palsy, differential diagnosis, posterior communicating artery aneurysm. Then third nerve palsy, how to manage? We got a diagnosis, the most likely cause is given, management, investigations you prioritize and write, and then the final treatment. A question on ROP, a 30 weeks old preterm baby who was admitted in NICU for hyaline membrane disease and on CPAP for 1 week is screened for ROP and found to have ridge with neurovascularization attached to it in between disc and macula in the right eye. The question is, what is the stage and zone of this ROP? What is the management? What are the possible differential diagnosis? It is very pinpoint. So accordingly, we answer 30 weeks preterm, 1 week on CPAP in ICU. The differential diagnosis would be like familial exudative vitreoretinopathy, retinal detachment, Nuri disease, persistent fetal vasculature. But the main one is ROP stage 3, zone 2. So accordingly, we go for the management. Immediate laser photocoagulation, anti-VEGF as and when necessary. Then managing retinopathy of prematurity in stage 3, zone 1. So stage 3, you can draw a diagram and give laser treatment. Then we can emphasize on ablating the entire avascular retina from reach to the aura and mention the differential diagnosis. Then a 75-year-old woman presents with nausea, vomiting, and she says right eye is painful and red, vision is reduced. This is a very simple question which is repeatedly asked in examinations. On examination, her visual acuity is counting fingers close range. In the left eye, it is 6-9. The right eye is congested, cornea is edematous, pupil is oval and dilated. All the hints given. What is the diagnosis and what is the management? Then we summarize the case and diagnose rapidly because it is a medical emergency. Treat immediately with osmotic agents and do after the pressure is lowered a little, do urgent peripheral laser iridotomy and rule out alternate diagnosis like check for corneal ulcer, endophthalmitis or secondary angle closure as per priority. Then the investigations are done and treatment to the other eye is also given. Then this is another case scenario, 14-year-old male who presented with defective night vision. On fundus examination, there is arterial attenuation, bony spicules in the mid-periphery and waxy disc pallor. So the question itself says about RP, which mode of inheritance has best prognosis? Name some ocular associations of RP and ERG findings of RP. So here the diagnosis is already given. So the best RP inheritance is autosomal recessive. All the modes of inheritance are there. Ocular associations can be given. And ERG findings in RP, there is rod cone dystrophy. The student can draw the diagram and label ERG curve. And this is a 76-year-old male who presented with severe pain, redness in the right eye. The image wouldn't be given, I just added to create the interest for it. His visual acuity is 618 in the right eye, 69 in the left eye. No other systemic illness. On examination, there is crescent-shaped peripheral corneal ulcer with undermining edges, infiltrates along the leading edge of in the right eye. The left is normal. Systemic evaluation and corneal scraping, no cause is found. So, what is the diagnosis, management, and differential diagnosis? So, by now, the students would know that this is a case of Mooren's ulcer. So, management is with topical steroids, conjunctival resection. We go step by step, write about the differential diagnosis, that is PUK, Terrien's marginal degeneration, pellucid marginal degeneration. Can draw the diagram and mention the things. So the common postgraduate or resident pitfalls are jumping to diagnosis without analyzing the case, writing everything that is known without any prioritization. Poor structuring leads to loss of marks despite all the knowledge that the person has. The key message would be exams reward structured thinking, not encyclopedic memory. So please prioritize. Now, the examiner loves phrases like to rule out, to confirm, to grade. That is, you have it in a very structured manner. That would be very much acceptable. Now, the Gen Z is very confident. They're ambitious, mindful, empathy. They have a lot of empathy. So they have a lot of knowledge. Just a little bit of putting in a structured approach to case-based long questions would help a lot. And this is, we have a very smart Gen Z doctors with us. Thank you with this. I thank all of you, and I hope the students have got uh, to learn something from here. And again, I'm this case, this presentation is out of topic, so please bear with me. Over to Ahan and Dr. Rolika.
Thank you so much, ma'am. This is really helpful for all the residents because they definitely have to give exams, if not research in a much more oriented way. So this will be very helpful to the students. And with that said, I request Dr. Sugato sir to please give his insights on this.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, sorry I couldn't join in time because of the clinic, and thank you for including me. Uh, that was lovely presentation. Dr. Bera, you have utilized the Chat GPT, but it was a lovely, lovely presentation. And I'm sure the students will be learning with a lot of take-home messages. As you have said, you have to formulate their answer according to the marks given, and you cannot write on pages after pages for 5 marks questions, whereas you have to elaborate for when the marks distribution is more, say, 15 or 20. So that is one important point. And second important point is structuring the questions and formulating how to write. First think about and then start the writing, because as you have said, don't put the rare diagnosis at the top, put the common diagnosis, because examiner wants to see whether you are a safe practitioner or not, or whether you are taking into account the common thing first and planning the treatment rather than thinking of the rarest thing and planning that treatment. So that's what my thinking process is.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your inputs. Latika ma'am, your inputs, please.
I mean, it was such a nice and illustrative talk. There is nothing much more to add. I mean, it was only thing is I wish I had more PG students answering in such a neat handwriting with or without structure. We find it very difficult to go through their answer paper. So I would suggest that they should pay some attention to. Yet till now we don't have an online input. Only the evaluation is centralized and computer assisted. Input is still scan papers. So I would request the PGs to write it legibly at least. If they have a very bad handwriting, go for capital letters. That will improve any bad handwriting. So that is the one thing I want to add to that.
Can I ask another question to Dr. Vanati if she's here?
Yes, sir.
regarding the last presentation of Dr. Chaudhary, which was very good as well. So when we are talking about plagiarism, there are different apps and different websites which helps in diagnosing plagiarism. But I have seen that same thing in one app, it shows 40%, and in another app or another website, it shows 0%. So how do you choose which website to use, and how you select that?
Hi, Dr. Sugato.
Right.
Nice to see you. I think it's guess too, and there are multiple apps like Turnitin, Authenticate, so whichever you're using, if you're using a paid app, it gives you a better result. If you're using an unpaid version, then it would probably be only comparing or only applying the scrutiny to a part of your of the entire paper, and hence it will give you a result which is not accurate. This is the reason why the score comes differently, because most of the authors tend to use the online available version, which is a free version, and it is just sort of to acquaint the researcher to say this exists there and to encourage them to use it. So it will not probably be doing an authentic search on the or a similarity index study on the entire content which is being presented. Paid versions are the best, sir. We use Authenticate in Indian Journal of Ophthalmology, and it is available to all the reviewers where they can look at and use the reviewers tools for checking the plagiarism. And the plagiarism check is already done by our assistant editorial team before we send it out to send it out for review. So if we find that the plagiarism index, the similarity index on a plagiarism check is particularly high, which is not acceptable, then I return it either to the authors with a rejection or with a request to modify, depending upon the amount and the content of the similarity index, which when I analyze the report.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I would just add one point, like it's really important that in favor of Dr. Sharmishta ma'am's talk today, I think a lot of postgraduates feel that they don't have time at the end of the day. To be honest, I think after 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, our specialty is such where we do have a lot of time if we want it to be. So, like, if you have 3 years of residency, every day, even if you pick one important topic, you can actually write notes for it in advance so that it helps a lot. I mean, if at all, like, say, for example, you write notes on ARMD, it might take you a long, a duration, maybe 3 or 4 hours to read everything about ARMD and put them in like one place. But you've got that for the rest of your residency. And it is so important that you can keep adding points to it, but try to write it in a flowchart manner or with photographs and in a structured way, as ma'am has very well explained in her talk as well. And this will be your bank for right before the exam. Then you just have to flip it. So a lot of people feel that it's too tedious, but trust me, I've been there and done that, and it's very useful. So it was the easiest thing right before exam and the toughest thing on the residency days, but it can be useful. I don't know if everyone else agrees with it or not.
Yeah,
And
very well
definitely,
said, Dr. Rolika.
definitely, ma'am. Queuing on that, that is something that I've experienced in my residency, and I have started my second residency now with this course. So I really needed to listen to that because I have been doing the same thing, procrastination, once I reach home. So that is very helpful, ma'am. As you rightly told, it will add on to the visual recall as well because I've
Yeah.
written it by myself because these are my own notes. If I actually put in the effort to assimilate images and write my own notes, I am definitely going to remember it, and it's not difficult to revise.
Yes, and yes, the photographic memory works in a particular way that when you say, for example, you're reading ARMD, you're seeing a patient. While seeing the patient, you might not need to recall the notes. You've already assimilated that in your brain. But when you're writing an answer in an exam, you do need to see those notes because you won't be able to recall it so quickly. So that can be very useful. And again, an examiner gets only 5 minutes to check your notebook in toto. So please make sure that you draw flow charts, pictures. Just draw one huge eye and start putting the arrows from here and there and make it very neat and clean. And you're done. The examiner just knows that, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. That's how much time they get to correct the answer sheets. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure we have more professors over here who will be able to tell well while what they experience while correcting the examination sheet. Is that right, Vanati ma'am?
Yeah, I do agree. I always tell my residents this that in their 3 years of residency during the post-graduation, it's just that 1,000 odd days in their life which they must sort of entirely dedicate to learning. I do agree that today there are a lot of distractions in life in terms of digital media, in terms of a very active nightlife, in terms of a lot of socializing. But I always tell them to place a break on these for that 1,000 odd days in their life during their basic surgical training. And of course, for those who go in for their fellowships and for their senior residencies, it's another 3,000 odd days if they're doing a 3 years of, a residency or a fellowship program. And take it from me, I think the amount of time and learning which you do in those 6 years of your life is the most important. And later on your time gets divided for so many other commitments which you need to do in your terms of family time, relationships, and then other your practices and improving on your skills. So the more dedication and commitment you have to your time management, I should always remember tiredness is not taken away by simple procrastination. Tiredness can also be taken away by removing the monotony of the work which you're doing and the duration for which you're doing here. So it does not need to be just simple rest and sitting in one place. You could probably mix and juggle a lot of other activities and then sit back and use your time to fruitfully to improve and learn. And I always agree that, put your notes, whichever textbook you're following, put your notes on to that. It's not that all textbooks can be comprehensive. There would be something lacking in each and everything. So once you put in what is lacking, it also helps to address what you know in your own self needs to be updated. And it's a very, very effective way of going back to do a quick revision before your exams, because that's when you're very stressed, and ophthalmology is today very vast, and you really wouldn't know from which book to read for which specialty or subspecialty, and that puts you off rather than even if you're well read here. So I think it's one of the best ways to prepare yourself for those stressful moments of passing an examination.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And I think we have added perfect pointers, and I really like that we are perfectly on time as well. So, no delays for all of you on your Saturday, which you rightfully deserve to take a break now. And thank you so much to the speakers and expert panelists for making this webinar absolutely useful for the postgraduates and for all of us as well. We got a lot to learn. New aspects were seen, uh, new softwares were explored in the webinar today. So thank you so much. And thank you, Ahan, for a wonderful moderation. You just did not look like a new one. You're perfectly a pro at it. So
Okay.
thank you, everyone. And
And before we go, is it okay with everyone that we have a photo just to end this
Yeah.
on a good note? So I just take a screenshot. Please face your cameras and let's have a smile. Everyone, 3, 2, 1. Smile, please. Okay, perfect. Thank you so
thank
much.
you, everyone. Thank you, Sunilji, for your tech support. Thank you.
Thanks and good night.
Good night. And we will have the last session tomorrow for Guru Sangam. Tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Thank you, Ahan.